media capital of the world.
Well, good evening, Burbank community, fellow council members, city managers, city attorney, and everybody else that I might have missed. Good evening and welcome to our council meeting of Tuesday, September the 28th, 2021. During the current state of emergency due to the COVID-19 and in the interest of public health and safety, the public will not be able to physically attend today's meeting. In lieu of in-person attendance, the city is providing alternatives for viewing and participating in city council meetings. Will everybody please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Please place your right hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Madam City Clerk. How you doing today?
Good afternoon. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Outstanding. Nice smile. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Please call the roll for this evening.
Great. Councilmember Anthony
Present.
and Councilmember Schultz.
Present.
Councilmember Springer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Talamantes. That was present. And Mayor Frutos.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
There will be one period of general public comment this evening. If you would like to participate, please call now at 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in a queue until we begin public comment. This evening, community, we have 5 announcements. Number 1, Metro will be hosting 2 virtual community meetings regarding the proposed North Hollywood to Pasadena Bus Rapid Transit Project on Thursday, October the 7th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then again, same day, from 5 p.m. to 7. Metro will present and seek feedback on updated design options for sections of the project running through Burbank. For more information and the Zoom link to attend, please visit the city calendar at burbankca.gov. And this is the one that's going to go down Olive. So this is your time to please participate, give your input, give your thoughts of this busway that will be coming in our town on Olive. Number 2, the city clerk's office is currently accepting applications for 1 vacancy on the Burbank Housing Corporation Board of Directors for a full 2-year term ending October 31st, 2023, and 1 vacancy in the Community Development Goals Committee for an unexpired term ending July 31st, 2022. The deadline to submit an application for each vacancy is Thursday, September the 30th at 5 p.m. In addition, the city clerk's office is accepting applications for 1 vacancy on the Senior Citizen Board for an unexpired term ending July 31st, 2022. The deadline to submit an application for this vacancy is Wednesday, October 20th, 2021 at 5 p.m. If interested, please apply online at burbankca.gov/BCC application. For more information, please contact our city clerk's office at 818-238-5851, or email is cityclerks@burbankca.gov. Number 3, the Community Development Department is hosting an online meeting to seek input on preparation of the Downtown Burbank Transit-Oriented Development Specific Plan Environmental Impact Report on Wednesday, October the 6th, 2021 at 6 p.m. The specific plan seeks to update development standards for new residential, commercial, and industrial development opportunities while protecting existing neighborhoods. For more information on or about the plan and how to participate, please visit project website at downtownburbanktod.com, or please contact Senior Planner Leonard Bachet at 818-238-5250. Item number 4, Assembly Bill 832, the COVID-19 Tenant Relief Act approved by Governor Newsom on June 28, 2021, is set to expire on September 30th, 2021. This law supersedes local eviction orders and created temporary protections for residential renters unable to pay rent due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Beginning October 1st, 2021, landlords may proceed with eviction proceedings for past due rent. Again, for the benefit of the members of our community, beginning October 1st, 2021, landlords may proceed with eviction proceedings for past due rent. Therefore, it is so urgent that residential tenants protect themselves from eviction for unpaid rent due to COVID-19 hardship by applying to the state rental assistance program. Households can get up to 100% of their rental debt paid. Apply now at HouseKey, HOUSINGISKEY.com, or please call area code 833-430-2122. Again, for rental assistance, please call area code 833-430-2122 before the eviction protections end on September the 30th. Additionally, the City of Burbank Commercial Eviction Ordinance is also set to expire September 30th, 2021. Eligible commercial tenants impacted by COVID-19 may be able to rely on LA County's emergency moratorium, but ultimately, in an eviction action, a court will decide. Eligible commercial tenants that were protected from eviction via the city's commercial eviction moratorium have until March 31st, 2022 to pay back due rent. Again, eligible commercial tenants that were protected from eviction via the city's commercial eviction moratorium have until March 31st, 2022 to pay back due rent. For more information on the rent repayment period and commercial tenant resources, please visit the city's COVID-19 webpage at burbankca.gov/business-resources. Number 5. On this one here, I'm going to ask our fire chief for assistance. For the last announcement this evening, again, I would like to invite our fire chief, Chief Eric Garcia, to please speak about this year's Burbank's participation in the 2021 Light the Night for Fallen Firefighters Tribute. Chief, welcome to our meeting.
Council Eric Garcia, Fire Chief. As Mayor Frutos mentioned, the 2021 Light the Night event will be taking place as it does every October. The National Fallen Firefighters Foundation sponsors the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Weekend. This is the official national tribute to those firefighters who died in the line of duty in the previous year. In 2017, the foundation created the Light the Night for Fallen Firefighters to recognize the 25th anniversary of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation and the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Weekend. Since then, the Light the Night for Fallen Firefighters has expanded to include fire departments and families lighting their homes in red. As dusk turns to dark, landmarks, homes, fire service organizations, and businesses across the country will again glow in respect from September 26th through October 3rd. This is Burbank Fire Department's second year participating in the event, and this will be an annual event for us, and BFD will recognize the Fallen Firefighters Memorial Weekend tribute beginning this Friday, October 1st, through Sunday, October 3rd. We will light up all of our fire stations, and I am proud to share that our city team will also participate by lighting up City Hall and Burbank Water and Power. Additionally, our community partners will, at Warner Brothers, Disney, and Nickelodeon will also participate and light their respective facilities. This is a real great initiative, and we are all eager to honor the fallen and their families. We encourage our community members to also participate, and there's more information that can be found at www.firehero.org/lighttthenight. I'll repeat that one more time, www.firehero.org/lighttthenight. Thank you, Mayor Frutos.
Chief, please, on behalf of the entire council, thank the men and women and also the civilian support staff, what you guys do day in and day out for this community. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely will do. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to presentations this evening. As part of the Employee Appreciation Week, the City of Burbank is recognizing the outstanding contributions and accomplishment of its 2021 Firefighters of the Year, Police Officer of the Year, and Employee of the Year. First, I would like to congratulate Fire Captain Eric Johnson on being named Firefighter of the Year. Though a year that has had many challenges, which is true, Captain Johnson has been a strong, positive leader. His attitude and influence are the model of right looks like. When it comes to serving the community, and in particular, patient care, Captain Johnson not only stepped up this year to aid in the recruitment process for the 2020 and 2021 academies by assuming the role of lead background investigator. He also accepted a role as a shift coordinator for the department. He has constantly been a positive influence, and his work ethic, attitude, and commitment has been an integral in helping the department successfully face many challenges over the past year. Chief Garcia will be joining us this evening. Chief Garcia, once again at the mic, sir, if you can please say a few words about the captain to the members of the public.
Thank you, Mayor Frutos. Happy to do so. On behalf of the men and women of the Burbank Fire Department, I would like to congratulate Fire Captain Eric Johnson for being unanimously selected as our Firefighter of the Year. In addition to the accolades that Mayor Frutos mentioned, I would like to add that Captain Johnson epitomizes the phrase of selfless service. He has a contagious positive attitude, he exemplifies each of our values, and he takes tremendous pride in being a firefighter for the city of Burbank. Also known as EJ, and I would be remiss if I did not speak to one of EJ's truest qualities, and that is his humility. He is not looking for accolades and does not look for pats on the back. In fact, things like this typically make him pretty uncomfortable, and it's probably a good thing that it's virtual for him this evening. Lastly, EJ has a beautiful family who he loves very much, and I am so grateful that Robin and the boys are willing to share him with us. EJ, you are so very deserving, and you truly make us better. Congratulations once again on being the 2020 Firefighter of the Year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief. Thank you. Captain Johnson, on behalf of the City Council, we all would like to present you with this certificate, which I showed on the camera, of recognition for your exceptional service to the community, strong leadership, tireless dedication, and most important, your positive attitude day in and day out. Before I turn it over to you, Captain, Vice Mayor, since you're a firefighter and you always have a historical perspective, would you like to say a few words?
I just want to congratulate Captain Johnson. Congratulations, Eric. Long overdue, well deserved. We go a long time, obviously, from one of your first days on the job. That's we've been, it's history. But anyway, congratulations to you, your family, and much success going forward. Stay safe. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Captain Johnson, I now turn the mic to you for a few words to the community and the council.
Well, thank you very much. I am very honored to receive this recognition, but honestly, it's not something that I did. It's something that obviously the Burbank Fire Department is a family, and like any other family, we work together. And I could never be successful without everybody around me and in the department. So I really didn't earn this. The Burbank Fire Department earned it, and we will continue to earn it every single day. So thank you very much.
Captain Johnson, thank you for coming to work every day and being a role model to younger firefighters, a good positive hero to our youth in our community, but most important, thank you for that special that you do day in and day out, because you know what? You're a hero to a lot of people in this community, and we appreciate our fire department so much. But the accolade is for you, and I appreciate you acknowledging our fire department. But this time, we as a council want to say thank you for everything that you do, and keep up the great work and the mentorship for our younger firefighters coming on the deck. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on. Tonight we're also celebrating the 2021 Police Officer of the Year, Detective Christian Diaz. Detective Diaz began his career back with the Burbank Police Department as a police cadet in 2008 and realized his dream of becoming a police officer in 2010. After 9 years in the patrol division, he was promoted to detective in 2017 and assigned to investigate commercial burglaries. Detective Diaz's investigative skills has led to 24 burglaries being solved, and the evidence he compiled was also used to assist other agencies in solving crimes committed throughout the Southland, California. Though hard work and dedication, Detective Diaz has helped reduce crime in Burbank and better the lives of its citizens. Detective Diaz is unable to join us this evening, but on his behalf of the City Council, we all would like to acknowledge him and present him with his own certificate of recognition. Where did I just lose my thoughts? For his professionalism and commitment, the Burbank Police Department's core values of respect, integrity, and excellence. I would like to invite Chief Albanese to say a few words at this time. Chief, good evening and welcome to our meeting.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Vice Mayor, Councilman Springer, Member Constantine Anthony, and Schultz. Good evening. So Christian Diaz and I have something in common. We started in the department in 2010, although he defines what the recruitment pipeline is at cadet to police officers, but we were both sworn in 2010, and he has just done a great job from 2010 to when he was promoted to detective in 2017. He has a great work ethic. He's got incredible street instincts. I have gotten calls from other agencies about how he will collaborate with them on complicated investigations. And High Marks has recently we received a call from the Beverly Hills Police Department, their investigative personnel, thanking Diaz and also acknowledging him to me as far as his investigative acumen. Just a great employee. He's got a young family, very committed to his family, 2 young boys. His wife used to work for the department, has now become a full-time mom. But as far as representing our organization, as far as work ethic and commitment to the law enforcement mission, he's our guy. So thank you. And congratulations, Christian.
Chief, please thank the men and women, including the support staff, on behalf of the council, especially in these last 18 months have been very trying and trying to redefine what community-based policing is and all the new mandates that have come out. Please thank them for every day that they come to work. We pray that they go home safe to their families, and we're very blessed to have the individuals under your leadership in this department and this organization. But on behalf of the entire city council and the community they police, thank them. We very, very, very much appreciate their service. Thank you.
Thank you. That is something I take pleasure in taking back to our folks. Thank you very
Great.
much. And thank the council.
Thank you. And congratulations, Detective Diaz. Too bad you couldn't be here, but thank you for your time and commitment, because being a policeman, you've missed several birthdays, you've missed several Christmases and Easter egg hunts with your children and stuff. But we as a council thank you for your personal sacrifices and your true dedication to policing the city of Burbank and maintaining its residents safe. Thank you, sir. Okay. For the next recognition this evening, I'm happy to announce that Garin, and I apologize, I'm going to try to pronounce your name correctly, Isakanian, Operations Manager for IT Department, has been named the 2021 City Burbank Employee of the Year. Garin has been a member of the city's IT team since 2000, beginning as a technical support analyst and working his way up the ranks with a focus on network engineering. During his 20 years with the city, he has worked closely with many departments on many projects, but in the past 2 years have been particularly challenging, and Garin has risen to face it all with determination and tenacity. The pandemic forced a reimagining of technology services for the city, and Garin rallied his team to deploy technologies that allowed city employees to work from home, enabled the public secure access virtually, city services, and made online payments, implemented online public meetings, and set up the technology for the city's vaccination clinic. Garin is always willing to go the extra mile and is an asset for the city and an outstanding representative of the IT department. Congratulations, Garin. And then we'll hold up your little certificate here. On behalf of the entire City Council, we'd like to present you with this certificate of recognition for your exemplary services and dedication to the city. At this time, I would like to invite Chief Information Officer Kevin Gray to please say a few words, followed by Mr. Isakanian, and I hope I pronounced that name right. Good evening, sir, and welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. And it was really close. Isakanian. I want to say, first of all, that I am extremely proud of my friend and team member, Garin Isakanian. Garin, he exerts seemingly unlimited effort to make sure that our operations are continuing, to make sure that the city's continuing to run, and IT, we are not staffed 24/7. But Garin is 24/7. A police captain once wrote to me, I just wanted to bring your attention yet another example of Garin's well-established track record of professionalism and willingness to always go the extra mile. Not only is he a definite asset for the BPD, he is an outstanding representative of the IT department. And I have to say, I couldn't agree more. The last thing that I'd like to say about Garen is he is the ultimate team player. His picture should be next to team player in the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary, and Wikipedia. If you don't believe me, you can probably ask anybody in the city, because they've surely experienced his wonderful work in one manner or another, including you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to say thank you to Garen, and congratulations. It is well deserved.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
I have to apologize because when it comes to IT, you and your team are like behind the scenes. And let's say I have a hiccup with my iPad or some program, I apologize. So I'm really glad I was able to sign a certificate, because you guys are also as important as every other department. But because you guys are behind the scenes, unless something goes sideways, I really don't have that much interaction.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we took this opportunity to acknowledge you and this great employee of 20 years. And I was also told that he's been working on some programs with solid waste, that he's doing a phenomenal job to bring that IT.
Probably is, and I
concept.
don't even know about that, but that's
The
Garen.
mayor knows everything. I got my tentacles of information out there.
Yeah.
But thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your team.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
can I just weigh in? I just want to say a few words about Garin. We've known each other for many years. I remember when he would come up to the fire station and do all the technical work when he first started with the city. So it's been a long road, but he did an excellent job. I want to echo those comments that were made by the police captain. Garin is excellent. He's been excellent all these years, and specifically when we worked together, when we would come to the fire station and he would fix what we broke. But anyway, Garin, congratulations.
Again, Mr. Garin, I apologize for mispronouncing. I tried really hard to sound your name correctly. My apologies, sir. Mr. Garin, would you like to say a few words to the community and the council?
Sure, I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Vice Mayor Talamantes, council members, thank you very much. I'm truly grateful and humbled to be recognized with this award. I want to thank my management, Kevin Gray and Ted Lord, for their leadership and guidance, along with my fellow IT colleagues and my team for their hard work and commitment, not only to their jobs, but also to the city and to me. It has truly been an honor working for the city alongside all the hardworking employees, supporting each other and providing outstanding service to the community. I really look forward to a great upcoming year where we will have the privilege to just continue innovating and growing as a city. So I really want to thank everyone again for this recognition. I really appreciate it.
Mr. Garin, thank you. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your 724 attitude. And most important, I don't know what you're doing at Solid Waste, but you're doing a bang-up job out there working on that project.
Thank you.
But thank you. It's people like you that make Burbank a great place for its residents to come and live, vacation, and play. Thank you for your hard work. It's definitely noticed. And please look at this little certificate as a commitment of the city council to acknowledge your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Also joining us tonight are employees who have reached 40 or more years of service with the city in 2020 and 2021, along with their department directors. I'd like to take this moment to recognize each of you on this milestone that you are achieving. And I have is this the only proclamation, Mr. City Manager? Oh, here is a sample that each 40-year milestone employee will be receiving on behalf of the City Council. And we're going to recognize each one of you. And you'll be receiving this proclamation shortly in recognition of this great achievement of yours. First, I'd like to invite Burbank Water and Power General Manager, Ms. Lindell, to please introduce your 40-year employees. Welcome, ma'am, to our meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am pleased to be able to bring forward comments on two 40-year employees from Burbank Water and Power. The first is Elliot Azus, who was not able to join us tonight. Elliot Azus is one of the nicest people you would ever meet. He's so well liked by his peers that it would be upsetting to many if they heard another speak ill of him. He seems to always be in a good mood. If you were to ask Elliot how he has become such a positive influence, he would tell you it is because of his faith. Elliot is an example of someone who truly lives his values. Elliot's the proud father of 3 adult children. Adam, his oldest, has a Bachelor of Science in Business, is an Eagle Scout, and has bowled a perfect game. Eric is also an Eagle Scout, works in the security industry, and is an excellent baseball player and golfer. Elliot's daughter, Caitlin, has been a ballerina most of her life. Elliot is also very proud of the newest addition to his family. His first grandson, Aiden, was born on July 31st. Aiden's parents are Elliot's son, Adam, and daughter-in-law, Elizabeth. Elliot is also proud to be an Army veteran who served during the Vietnam era. Elliot will tell anyone willing to listen that he feels blessed and honored to have served his country. His military service is important to him because he feels he owes a great debt of gratitude to all the brave American servicemen and women who lost their lives so our great country could be safe and free. Elliot would like to acknowledge June, his best friend of almost 50 years. She has always been there for me, even when she has not liked me so much. June is a true friend. The second employee of, has Elliot been able to join us? No, okay, very good. Wanted to make sure that didn't change. Okay, the second employee I'd like to recognize is Bruce Redman. Mr. Redman has been an integral part of BWP's maturation to becoming one of the leading utilities in the nation. As IBEW chairman, Bruce was a trusted partner with BWP and city leadership. Bruce met weekly with Ron Davis, and a special bond was formed, which helped move BWP forward. Not only was he a committed line mechanic for many years and IBEW chairman, his service as BWP's safety coordinator helped BWP improve personal protective equipment to guard against electrocution, improved work practices related to fall protection procedures on the power pole, as well as implementing an innovative preventive injury stretching program which helped employees avoid repetitive injuries in the field. Through community partnerships, IBEW assisted on many projects within the community. Bruce will be missed as he has retired recently due to his knowledge, commitment, and dedication to the craft personnel at BWP. Through this deep relationship, Bruce made Burbank a better place for all residents and businesses. Thank you, Bruce, for all that you did in your career at the city of Burbank.
Mr. Redmond, I'd like to invite you to say a few words to the members of the audience and the council.
Can you hear me, Bob?
Loud and clear, sir.
Oh, I want to make sure I'm not computer savvy. I want to thank all of you very, very much, especially you, Mayor Bob Frutos, and Vice Mayor Jess Talamontes. We go back a couple years. Born and raised here. This is my community. This is my love. This is my city. My career has been fantastic. And I just want to thank you all very much and take care of my city.
Mr. Redmond, on behalf of the entire city council, something that didn't come out is your passion, your leadership to get the linemen involved through charity work, to get behind the Boys and Girls Club and work on their electrical problems, since you guys are the subject matter experts. I was always impressed of how many hours you and the membership, the linemen, basically helped out the Boys and Girls Club to get that old building safely wired for the needs for the children. And for that, you're a hero in this community. Thank you for your 40 years of service, but most important, thank you just for who Bruce Redmond is. Thank you.
And thank all of you very much.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bruce, thank you for everything you've done for the city of Burbank. It's been a long time here, and you've done a lot of good things for the community, not only for the IBW and Burbank Water and Power, but also the community. So you should be very proud of what you've done here in Burbank, and we will try and take care of it. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Take care, Bruce, and say hi to the missus.
I sure will.
Take
Bye-bye,
care.
guys.
Next is Library Services Director Elizabeth Goldman. Ms. Goldman?
Good evening, Mayor Frutos, members of council. The library has 3 employees marking 40 years of service, and 2 are here with us tonight. First up, it's my pleasure to congratulate Tina Larson on 40 years of service to Burbank Public Library. Tina is a senior clerk who works in acquisitions, which means she's the first person who gets to see every new book that comes in for the library collection. That is to say, at least in my opinion, she has the best job ever. Tina keeps us organized to order and receive thousands of books and DVDs every year, which ultimately brings so much joy to readers and the people we serve. Tina also provides frontline service, issuing library cards and checking out books. She's known for her conversational skills, her deep knowledge of all things Burbank, and her incredible skills as a baker. You know it's going to be a good day when Tina stops by to ask you to test out a new recipe she's made. It's always going to be great. So thank you, Tina, for being a valued member of our library team for 4 decades. Next is David Peterson. Before he retired in May of 2021, David managed to work in basically every role that exists in the library. He started as a page, shelving books during college, and worked his way all the way up to supervising librarian. In his 40 years, David was a key player in many significant changes, including the computerization of the library's catalog and implementation of self-service options for checkout. Beyond his skills in those areas, David was valued by staff for his commitment to being helpful and solving problems. Have a question? David is there. David has an encyclopedic knowledge of many subjects, including Burbank Public Library's own history, presidential factoids, and baseball. Pardon me for the sirens behind me. And while we miss him, we hope he's enjoying his well-deserved retirement and finally having a chance to read more of the books that surrounded him for so long. Thank you, David, for everything you gave to the library over the years. Last but not least, Bonnie Yee retired from the library back in February 2020. Good timing, right before the pandemic. It does feel like another lifetime. She was a capable and caring librarian for Burbank for 40 years. What Bonnie did is she took all those new books and DVDs I just mentioned and added them to the library catalog, the key step that lets people find what they're looking for. Bonnie also made sure our collection worked for those with low vision, coordinating our partnership with the Braille Institute. Bonnie grew up in Hawaii and lived in Washington State and California. Her love of travel helped build a strong collection of travel guides at the library, and she even had the opportunity in 2018 to be a judge for the travel category for the Independent Book Publishers Association. Since retirement, she has been enjoying her children's recent weddings and making plans for more travel. Thank you, Bonnie. We wish you well.
I'd like to turn the mic over to Tina. If you'd like to say a few words to the council and to the Burbank community, you have the mic.
Well, thank you. Having grown up in Burbank, I got my first library card at the age of 5 at no longer existence, no Lenox Library, which I could walk to, which made me a big library user. Never thought I'd end up working at one for 40 years. I have certainly, or I'm still enjoying it. I get to see all the new books, so I get them first. Seeing all the changes from the Kodak microfilm, to checking out on computer and the internet and all the different changes that exist. And next year, hopefully, looking forward to retirement so I can actually start reading all the books I don't have time to read now. And being a lifetime Burbank resident, I will be back and make sure they're doing it the way they should. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina, so much for your 40 years of service to the people of Burbank. As you know, the library is a hub of energy. It is like the central focus point that everybody likes to come to, and you provide that safe haven to read a book, work with our kids. But thank you for your 40 years of service to the people of Burbank. Thank you.
Okay.
David, you have the mic, sir.
I do. Well, who knows what will happen now? I would simply like to say that when I started work at the library, I did not know it was going to become my career, and I'm greatly appreciative of the opportunities that it afforded me. Now that I've retired, I remain a library user, a Burbank resident, and I do want to stress to the city council that I do want to be able to attend both groundbreaking and ribbon cutting for a new central library. Aside from that, I probably will see most all of you around Burbank because that's the way Burbank rolls. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for your 40 years. And to David, who'd ever thought when you hired out 40 years ago, and also Tina, that 40 years later, we'd be, quote unquote, this new word, Zoom. And we'd be having this type of Buck Rogers in the 21st century type of meeting. But that's how much you both, David and Tina, have contributed to the success of the city moving forward. I mean, if you really think back in your 40 years, think how the library services department was when you first hired on, then think about it when you got about 20 years, how it was, and now look at it today when you reach this great milestone. And again, thank you. David, we'll see you in the community, but thank you for your 40 years of service to the people of Burbank. Thank you for making this Burbank Library, both of you, so successful. Thank you. Okay, also joining us tonight is Parks and Recreation Director Marissa Garcia. Ms. Garcia, please introduce your employee.
Good evening, Mayor Frutos and council members. It is truly my honor to share a few words about Parks and Recreation 40-year employee Steve Aldana. Regrettably, Steve isn't able to join us this evening, but here I'm happy to share some noteworthy information about Steve. Steve first joined the City of Burbank family as a work trainee in October of 1980. He probably did not realize at the time that this part-time after-school job would lead to a long career. In almost exactly 7 years from the date that he was hired, Steve was promoted to the position of groundskeeper, and he remained in this position for the remainder of his career. So for 33 years, he was a groundskeeper. Over the course of his tenure, Steve worked in all of our parks, making sure that they were well maintained for our community's use, and was one of our most seasoned and knowledgeable employees in the department. One of the last assignments that Steve had was overseeing the landscape and facility at Bryce Canyon Park. I can tell you that Steve was one of the hardest working, most energetic, and extremely positive employees in the department. His work ethic, coupled with his positive energy, is one of the reasons why he was recognized as an Employee of the Year previously in the Parks and Recreation Department. His loyalty to his supervisors and the department and his positive attitude helps to maintain a happy and healthy work environment. This dedicated, reliable, and skilled employee made him a valuable team member for the City of Burbank organization. Steve, just a few fun facts. Steve is a huge fan of NASCAR, and his favorite drivers are Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Tony Stewart. He is also an avid outdoorsman and loves camping and hiking. And before their passing, Steve would often go hiking with two of his dogs, Ozzy and Savage. He did retire from the city in November of 2020, and while he is greatly missed, I'm very happy that we're able to recognize him and his long career with the City of Burbank this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Garcia. And when you deliver the plaque to him, please let him know how thankful the council is of his 40 years of contribution, because we have one of the best parks and people love the activities and how green and upkeep of our parks are. And it's employees like Steve that contributed to what the people love about our parks. Please thank him on behalf of the council. Thank you. Next is our police chief, Mike Albanese. Chief, would you please introduce your 40-year employee?
Thank you, Mayor, and it is my pleasure to introduce Norma Rose Brosma, who did 40-plus years with the police department. She is not here this evening, and she has retired, but here's the big but. She started with the library, so there's kind of a library theme here. So September 16th, 1980, she started as a clerk with the library. A year later, she came over to the police department, and then ultimately she ended up in the film permit office in 1994 and remained in that position till when she retired June of this year. So a couple things about her and her DNA, if you will. You think of the number of films that she has her DNA on from 1994 to 2021, it's significant. In fact, if you do a chat with her, and she'll tell you about some of the really notable films. Let's start with the Academy Award-winning films, and it's really impressive. So the epicenter to all of this is the city of Burbank, and there's a library nexus, there's a police nexus, but 40 years is a long, long time to serve, and she was the heart and soul of our film permit unit, mentored others to develop, to take over as she moved on. So well done, Norma, and a great career for her. You got it.
Thank you, Chief. And when you see Norma, please tell her thank you on behalf of the council. Please. Last is Public Works Director, Mr. Ken Berkman. Would you please introduce your employee?
Hello, Honorable Mayor, council members. It would be my honor for me to honor David Codillo. In the summer of 1974, David got a taste of city employment when he was hired as a temporary refuse man, as they were called back then. In April of '75, David had another opportunity to come to work for the city under a federal government training program as a custodian and became a permanent custodian about a year later. The following year, he sought out other opportunities in the Public Works Department, and he was appointed to a permanent refuseman position on December 1st, 1977. David has an amazing wealth of experience as a solid waste truck operator, as the refuseman position is currently called. The city has received many compliments about David's services over the years. David and his family are involved in several charities, including Herbie's Heroes, a national charity that works with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and Star Cars, a national club that is involved in car shows, fundraisers, and special events. David and his family have been recognized by the Walt Disney Company and have been asked to bring their Herbie the Love Bug replica that he and his son restored to special events like the world premiere of Herbie Fully Loaded at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood. Interestingly, David's father, Jerry, is on the city's website Employee Hall of Fame for his own 45 years of service to the city with Public Works. His brother, Mike, retired after 36 years of service, also with Public Works. And now David's nephew, Jerry, is working with us in Public Works as well. So it's definitely a family affair of service there. Please join me in appreciating David's 45 years of dedication to the city of Burbank. Congratulations, David.
Mr. Berkman, is David the individual that keeps his truck the cleanest of all the fleet? Is he the gentleman? Because I know there's one guy that always cleans his refuse truck. I'm trying to find.
If you say so, sir, then it must be.
Okay, yeah, he has the cleanest truck that's assigned to him. And a community member brought that to my attention, that his truck is always the cleanest. So please let him know how appreciative we are of all his years of service. It's definitely a huge milestone, and please let him know how much we appreciate him, Mr. Berkman.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to again congratulate everybody, but I want to say a special thank you to the dozens of employees that have reached milestones of 20, 25, 30, and 35 years with the city. May we please play the video now? Mr. City Manager. On behalf of the entire City Council, thank you for managing over 1,500 employees. But to look at the years of service, it's not reach retirement and get out. The commitment and what you do day in and day out to facilitate our human resources throughout the city shows by the years of service that people aren't just pulling the pin as soon as they're retirement age. Those are a lot of folks that are over retirement age, but they like the service to the people. They like the city of Burbank as an employer. So on behalf of the council, to our one of our two employees, the city manager, keep up the great work, because you're fostering obviously a good work environment overall because of the longevity. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Okay, again, congratulations to all the employees that were recognized this evening, and thank you for your service and dedication to the community. And also thank you to everybody else that's part of our human resources, that at the end of the day, you are providing the valuable services to our community. Thank you to all the employees of Burbank. Okay, our last presentation this evening, we have a proclamation for National Voter Registration Day. Whereas one of the most important rights of any democracy is the right to vote, and whereas each year on National Voter Registration Day, we reaffirm our strong sense of civic pride and encourage friends, family members, and neighbors to get involved in civic life by registering to vote. And whereas democracy is not a spectator sport, but unfortunately, among those who are eligible to vote, too many choose not to. And whereas when we do not take full advantage of the right to vote, we not only give away our voice, power, and ability to shape the future of this country, we also do a disservice to the generations of Americans who came before us and risked everything to protect this fundamental right. And whereas government is only as strong as what we put into it, and it is only reflective of the will of our citizens when we exercise our right to vote. Now, therefore, I, Bob Frutos, Mayor of the City of Burbank, do hereby proclaim September 28, 2021 as National Voter Registration Day, and urge all of us to carry forward the tradition of promoting voter registration and civic engagement. I call upon all residents of the City of Burbank to observe this day by ensuring they are registered to vote. Here to accept this proclamation is our top-notch City Clerk, Ms. Mullins. Would you like to say a few words, ma'am?
Thank you. It's an honor to be called top notch because I only know one here in this room, and that's our city attorney. So
No, top notch. She's the top lawyer.
Oh, okay. All right.
Pronoun trouble.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just want to give a quick history about national voter registration. It actually started in 2012, and it quickly gained momentum. And on this date, typically, we get about close to 4.5 million voters registered that otherwise did not register prior to the awareness that they bring to the state. For the city clerk's office, what we've done to promote the National Voter Registration Day is today we had an open house and we passed out American flags, little American flags that people can carry around or put in their office. We still have some. If anybody's interested, they can come this week and register and pick one up. We also posted flyers on social media to bring awareness that today is the date and to take advantage of registering or re-registering. In addition, I'm happy to announce that the Burbank Unified School District is teaming up again with my office to hold the Clerks Cup competition. And that's going to be between Burbank and Burroughs High School. And we'll be coming back in the middle of October sometime to announce the winners. I'd really call them, there's no losers or winners, but they will have the Clerks Cup held at their school. So we remind everyone that you can register at any time, lavote.net, or pick up a voter registration card from the city clerk's office. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam City Clerk, if it works out on a Monday or Tuesday that are my days off, I would like to team up with you again like I did last year and engage the students and be there with you to help out and get them to register to vote. So count me in if it's on a Monday or Tuesday that I'm off from work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Our top lawyer of the city, could you please report on closed session? Oh, correction, my mistake. Mr. City Manager, will you please report on closed, correction, I'm ahead. Mr. City Manager, do you have anything to report this evening to the members of the community?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I actually have two things. First, I'd like to invite our Assistant Community Development Director, David Kriske, to provide an update on the railroad quiet zone at the Buena Vista and Van Owen grade crossing. We have some really good news there. And then I will call upon our Chief of Police, Chief Albanese, to provide a couple of brief police updates.
Great, Mr. Kriske. I don't hear that train a-coming. I don't hear that whistle coming.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Again, David Kriske with the Community Development Department. As you know, the City Council has long pursued a railroad quiet zone at the Buena Vista Van Owen Railroad grade crossing to reduce the impacts of train noise on the adjoining residential neighborhoods. This process involved securing funding, over $2 million in funding, installing several safety improvements at the crossing, and then applying to the federal government to seek approval to establish the quiet zone. I am very happy to report to you, Mr. Mayor, and to the City Council that as of 12:01 a.m. this morning, the quiet zone is now established at Buena Vista and Van Owen. What this means is that trains approaching the crossing will no longer routinely sound their horns. The quiet zone will be in place 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I will say that train engineers do have discretion to use their horns on a case-by-case basis if they observe a safety concern that requires it, but they're not routinely sounding them any longer at the crossing. Signs were installed this morning at all approaches to the crossing, advising motorists and pedestrians that trains will no longer sound the horns, so to be aware. And in the coming weeks, CDD and PIO staff will utilize the city's public outreach channels to raise awareness to the community of the new quiet zone and also to provide reminders of general rail crossing safety. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to give this update.
Thank you for the update. Next one, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, if I could have Chief Albanese come to the podium.
I hear that train a-coming.
Okay. Again, Mayor Frutos, Vice Mayor Talamantes, council members Springer, Schultz, and Anthony, good evening. I'm going to provide two updates. One is to provide you an update of the fatal traffic accident that occurred on August 3rd. It's still with a heavy heart that I have to talk about this. But as an update, as promised, both subjects that were involved in the incident remain in custody. One is an adult, one is a juvenile. The adult has his preliminary hearing on October 6th. The juvenile has a hearing October 8th. The California Highway Patrol's MAIT team, it's M-A-I-T, which stands for Major Accident Investigation Team. They started their investigative process on September 3rd. If you recall, I shared with you that is a pretty cumbersome process for them. They have declared that it will take 6+ months for them to complete their investigation. It is a critical analysis of data, and there is a lot of data that they are going to collect and put it in an investigative package. Our investigative team continues to communicate with the District Attorney's Office as far as the prosecutorial process, and that is the latest update. Okay, I'm going to move forward to the second update. On September 16th, our officers responded to a domestic violence call. That call was captured on video and ultimately posted in social media on TikTok. Just please understand that was a part of the video, that the officers that responded also had body-worn camera video, but we received a number of emails, and I know City Council received a number of calls questioning the way that we managed the incident. So there are two investigations that are currently going. There is the criminal investigation that actually has concluded. The prosecutorial entity declined to file charges. The temporary restraining order that was in place, there was a temporary restraining order hearing on September 20th, and both of the involved parties did not appear, so that restraining order has been terminated. So the criminal side is, for the most part, concluded. On the internal side, which I'm declaring now what it is, we initiated an internal affairs investigation once we saw pieces of the posted video. And what we're looking at is an investigative fact package to do a critical analysis as far as how we managed the incident. But there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of digital evidence, there's body-worn camera, there's other cameras, there's multiple witnesses, not only sworn officer witnesses, you have the involved parties, but there are other reporting parties who are witnesses. We are in the process of interviewing those folks. The involved parties have been less than cooperative as far as interviews. Regardless, we will do an in-depth investigation. And then at the end of the investigation, we will determine whether we managed it properly or if we had a misstep. It will be declared as much as we can declare it with the POBAR rights. But if there's any corrective measures, we will manage that accordingly. For folks that are still maybe anxious with our process, please understand this. The Office of Independent Review, that is absolutely fiercely independent, will review this case. There was a supervisor involved, and they will look at everything that we have done from the internal investigation and also the criminal investigation. They will do a critical analysis, and they will opine whether of the outcome, if there's what kind of findings there are. So that is the update on that social media posting.
Great. Mr. City Manager, can we get a follow-up from the chief in the future on the terrible accident, what happens from the court case, whenever that comes in October? And then when the investigation's over with this, we can get the Reader's Digest, because the council members would like to know what the outcome when the investigation's over, just so we know for our information.
Sure, we'll keep you updated on that.
Great. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you for the update, Chief.
You're welcome.
Okay, now to our top lawyer. Would you please report on closed session this evening, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, and staff. Council met in closed session earlier this evening. There were 4 items. 2 were existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54-956.9, subsection D1. One case was Macchiani versus City of Burbank. It was a trip and fall. The second was Ayers versus City of Burbank, a wrongful termination. The third item was public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54-957. Title of position was City Attorney / Interim City Attorney. The conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54-957.6. Agency negotiator, mayor and vice mayor. Title of the unrepresented employee was City Attorney / Interim City Attorney. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. Now is the time for general public comment. Members of the public may address the council for up to 3 minutes on any matter concerning city business. Please remember to lower the volume on your TV or computer, and please take your phone off speaker when you deliver public comment. To participate, please call in right now at 818-238-3335. Ms. Mullins, do we have any callers on the line for public comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do, and they're ready to come through.
Great, let's bring them on board. Thank you.
The first caller is Alyssa Cunningham.
Good evening, welcome.
Hello?
Hello, good evening, welcome. We can hear you.
Members of the public may address the council for up to 3 minutes.
Hello? Ms. Cunningham? I think we lost her. Oh, stand by.
I believe she hung up, but we have other callers that we can
The
put
next
through.
caller is Michelle Dominguez.
Good evening. Welcome.
Hello, Mayor Frutos, Vice Mayor Talamontes, and Council Members Springer, Anthony, and Schultz. My name is Michelle Dominguez, and I'd like to comment on the potential partial tax. I've been a proud Burbank resident and renter for 1 year. My resident anniversary is this Friday, and it's been a childhood dream of mine to live in Burbank. I think it started as a kid when my dad worked at Warner Brothers, and I had a blast visiting him at work, and I even got to celebrity spot George Lopez when I was there. And now that I'm here, I want to be as engaged with my community as possible. Since I moved to Burbank the month before the 2020 election, I probably called the LA Registrar's office 5 times to make sure that my record was correct so that I could vote in Burbank's municipal election. I'm involved in a sharing economy with my neighbors. I visit the Central Library and the Stuff Canyon Nature Center when I want to make a hike. I volunteer at a Burbank nonprofit, and I'm in the resident leadership program, RISE, run through the amazing Burbank Parks and Rec Department. And sometimes I call into city council meetings, but I always pay my fair share of taxes. But I'm afraid that my childhood dream of living in Burbank will be short-lived as my rent is going up for my next lease. Meanwhile, Burbank is in a housing crisis with a jobs-to-housing ratio of 3 to 1. I support a parcel tax because I think that big corporations should pay their fair share of taxes just like I do, and invest in Burbank in exchange for using Burbank's infrastructure just as I do. I can only imagine what Burbank could be with the funds from this tax. I personally would look forward to the city affording the beautiful renovation of the Central Library, paying for a long overdue update to the Stuff Canyon Nature Center, and make up for the millions of city dollars granted to the Burbank Unified School District over the years, which they certainly do need. And not to mention the millions of dollars that we could use to amp up Burbank's sustainability efforts so that we could continue to even have a planet. So let's just say for some reason at this time you don't agree with the working people of Burbank to place a parcel tax, which is your right. But on this National Voters Registration Day that you've declared, I still ask that you leave this decision to the voters of Burbank. My hope is that the majority of voters will support this parcel tax, just as over 60% of voters supported tax measures in the past 2 elections, like measures T, P, I, and QS. So to the city council members, my ask is that you direct staff to pursue placing a parcel tax on an upcoming ballot with an accompanying advisory measure to share the proceeds with the Burbank Unified School District. And when that parcel tax does reach the ballot, I really, really hope that I'll be a Burbank resident still so that I could vote in support of it. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you well.
Thank you for your call. Next caller, please.
The next caller is Christopher Matthew Spencer.
Good evening. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, City Council. My staff conducted a study of all the cities within the county, and it was discovered that Burbank's government is among the most expensive in the county in terms of cost per resident. Now, we have endless handouts. The very expensive Burbank buses run empty all the time. The city pays for commercial trash pickup at every high-volume commercial business with no cost to the business. And there's a long list of needless expenses, such as renaming ceremonies, tributes to faraway places, and even translating everything the city does into just 3 languages when Google offers free translations. In fact, we have at least 14 languages spoken among our electors. Now, there's a proposed parcel tax, which is going to propose to fleece property owners even more. Again, a brainchild of the Burbank Unified School District. A parcel tax was placed on the ballot twice, and it failed. That was 2018 Measure QS and 2020's Measure I. Both parcel taxes failed to pass because Burbankers did not support a tax increase. And I now read that the city attorney wants to hire an expensive outside lawyer to prepare another ballot tax measure. These ballot measures are expensive to put up. They distract from city business, and they pit residents against each other and get very nasty. The city needs to cut down their addiction to taxes. We don't need 9 baseball fields, 18 playgrounds in a city of 107,000 residents. And we have 42 parks and facilities that cost massive money. All this was easy to pay for before pension cost $1 and $5 spent on city workers, and now $280,000 was spent dealing with Tin Horn Flats. No more taxes. We're all taxed out. Stop the wasteful spending on studying more ways to tax us, and please kill the parcel tax now. Our Burbank nonprofits generated $1.6 billion in donations within a period of 1 year. Let the nonprofits provide the less fortunate with help, and let's have our city focus on essentials, not handouts. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you for your call. Next caller, please.
The next caller is Laura Ianu.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you, Council, for your acknowledgement of my comments from the previous meeting on raising the development impact fees. I'd like to ask a question for the city manager and or the community development staff. I looked at the future agendas. I do not see the development impact fee budget on the agenda anymore, and I don't see the increase of raising the fees. So as I was looking at it, it looks like that you could possibly do it in November. There's 2 meetings, and there wasn't a jam-packed full agenda on both of those dates. Also, December. I was going to suggest maybe you hold a special meeting on November 9th just for a discussion of development impact fees, since in November and December there's only 2 meetings each. I'd also like to say that development impact fees have been asked previously by many residents in the past, and I think as far back as 2018, maybe 2017, I did find a reference of the Mike and Roy show. It was a year-end show, and it was for 2019, where they were talking about the development impact fees to be raised. So, again, if they could answer that question, that'd be great. And I would also like to ask council to ask staff to make it a goal to have a discussion on raising the development impact fees before 2022. Thank you for your time, and have a great evening.
Thank you very much for your call. Next caller, please.
The next caller is Alessandra Valdez.
Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, council members. My name is Alessandra Valdez, and I'm a Burbank resident. I'm calling in today regarding the discussion of a parcel tax on the city council agenda. I'm in full support of a parcel tax that would only apply to the biggest corporations in Burbank, including Amazon and Walmart. If these corporations use our infrastructure, for example, Amazon using Hollywood Way, driving down with their Prime trucks, then it's only fair that they pay an appropriate amount of taxes as well. For these huge companies, millions are just a drop in the bucket, and they can afford to pay into the public services that they use. Our small businesses pay their taxes, so why shouldn't Amazon and these other corporations? I also asked the council to consider that many of these corporations get away with paying almost nothing in taxes every year. So supporting a parcel tax on these companies is perfectly reasonable. I'm also in support of using the money raised from this potential tax to fund our Burbank Public Schools, housing, and other local services, such as our libraries, our fire department. As an educator, I know how important it is to make sure that our education is robustly funded, and that's something that can be easily done by supporting this parcel tax tonight. A large percentage of Burbankers are renters, just like me, so being able to fund affordable housing with an Amazon tax would make a huge impact on our housing crisis and our 3-to-1 jobs to housing ratio as well. What's also exciting about this is that there's a precedent for a tax like this. Seattle City Council recently passed an Amazon tax that will raise over $200 million for their city. Amazon hasn't moved out of Seattle, and I don't think that they're going to move out of Burbank either. The money raised from this parcel tax could be used to invest in services, create union jobs, and change people's lives in this city. I support this Amazon tax because it's time for corporations in our city to pay their fair share, an appropriate amount of taxes, just like the rest of our community does. I ask the council to strongly support this Amazon tax tonight and to move forward with it in our city. Let the voters decide if this is something that should be passed or not.
Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much
Good
for
night.
your comment. Thank you. Next caller, please.
The next caller is Deborah Bindi.
Good evening. Welcome. Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hi. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi. To the City Council, I would like you to consider the development fees. We've been asking for you to seriously take a look at those since 2018. Again, in 2019, I sent information in. In 2020, I sent information in. I know that other people have. In 2020, the council themselves actually asked that information come back where you can compare actual fees, because you did get a report, but it was convoluted, and you couldn't compare with Glendale and Pasadena. You were just given a bunch of information that you couldn't say, this is what they charge for this, this is what they charge for that. The information is available easily by computer, by anybody, by going to each city's website, so that you can actually compare it yourself if you'd be interested in. Due to that fact, I'm very much against the parcel tax. I don't see anywhere where it says it's exempting family homes. And with all the issues that businesses have had to go through, it's, we're recovering. I don't think we need anything to hinder businesses recovering. With the Fry's development that was just passed yesterday, there's at least $15 million left on the table that Burbank's not going to collect on the 862 units, 2 office buildings, commercial space, and a restaurant. And that's just the figures from doing a simple per unit calculation, not counting any of the other structures. Also, they divided the lot in 3 different ways, which will make it easier to sell in the future. I just am not sure what's going on with the building department, and I think a more overlook is needed on stuff like that. Also, builder that extend. We had one builder that extended and continued to extend for 10 years without having to pay any additional fees. So that's also money that the city is actually losing. I just think it's wrong at this time. There's too many people struggling. Also, with that development, the air quality was addressed at yesterday's meeting, but they addressed the inside for occupants, not the outside for the people that are living in Burbank. I found that kind of unusual. Or a traffic impact, which we already know was bad from the Amazon development. And another thing, having developments with do not disclose, I don't think that should be allowed. The people in Burbank should know what's going on. I thank you for listening, and have a great evening. I know you have a difficult job.
Thank you very much for your call. Next caller, please.
Next caller is Harry Timurian.
Good evening. Welcome. Hello.
Yes.
Hi. Good evening.
Mr.
Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor Frutos, Vice Mayor Talamontes, fellow council members, good evening. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Harry Timurian, and I'm the former president and current legislative committee chair of the Burbank Association of Realtors. I wanted to speak to you about item number 7 on your agenda, about the parcel tax that you wish to place to share with the Burbank Unified School District. The association has several questions and concerns about this proposed parcel tax. We'd like to know, where is this request essentially coming from? Has the Burbank Unified School District approached the council and requested this type of parcel tax? How is this money going to be allocated, and for what programs? What does the city need this money for? The request itself is extremely vague for such a high tax. It really doesn't identify what the increase in property taxes will be used for or allocated towards. It essentially asks, hey, Burbank citizen, we're going to raise your taxes. Would you be upset if we raise your taxes and use the money for X, Y, Z? Would you be upset at that? You know, we're with the mindset that if the Burbank Unified School District wants to file a ballot measure to increase parcel taxes, then BUSD should do that. The citizens of Burbank have already voted down 2 ballot measures from BUSD. Even though this proposed parcel tax increase will only affect commercial properties, the citizens of California voted down Prop 15 in November. And if you recall, that proposition was going to increase parcel taxes on all commercial property. While some large corporations can absorb the cost of increased taxes, many small and mid-sized businesses will not be able to. The majority of these businesses are already struggling under the crippling effects of the pandemic. Couple that with the state of California not being one of the most business-friendly states, this tax is a recipe for disaster. Is the goal to kick businesses out of Burbank? Reports are stating that this is going to have a $100 million hit to commercial businesses in Burbank. Real estate taxes for the majority of businesses that lease commercial space are what is known as pass-through expenses that are paid by the tenant, not by the property owners. The tenants pay either direct assessments or by incorporating the increase into new higher lease rates. One of the examples of buildings that would be negatively affected by this
Sir,
tax
thank you. Thank you. Your 3 minutes are over. Thank you very much for your call. Next caller, please.
The next caller is John Garrow.
Good evening. Welcome.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Frutos and Vice Mayor Telemontes and council members. The strong motto of the Chamber has been, Burbank is open for business. For instance, we have no gross receipts tax. Additional taxing of the larger companies that environmentally and economically drive our town would be a mistake. The reason why these companies locate here is due to the friendly business environment. They also serve as anchors for the numerous small businesses which would otherwise not thrive without these large companies. We saw the results when Lockheed exited Burbank years ago. Without the larger companies, actually Burbank would become a ghost town. It is the sales tax that has to be maintained from these larger companies that supply the city with funding. Lastly, please keep in mind that there are many other states that are attracting businesses with major concessions and tax benefits. That's our competition. Please use discretion in this regard. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you for your call. Next caller, please.
The next caller is Ashley Ramsey.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Ashley Ramsey, and I've been a Burbank resident for 4 years. I'm calling tonight in support of a parcel tax, and I ask that City Council move forward by placing this tax on the upcoming ballot. This tax on the largest corporations will mean more funding for public education, affordable housing, a Green New Deal, and so much more in Burbank, all of which will greatly benefit our Burbank community. I ask that you take these things into consideration as you make your decision, and I thank you for your time. I hope you'll have a great evening.
Thank you very much for your call. Next caller, please.
The next caller is Alyssa Cunningham.
Good evening and welcome back. Sorry for losing you there earlier.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Elisa Cunningham, and I am a Burbank resident. And I'm calling tonight regarding SB 9 and SB 10. As you know, our governor recently signed these into law, and it's probably safe to say that these are going to have a significant effect on our neighborhoods. As a local realtor, I'm starting to get the calls from investors who are looking for single-family properties that they can legally turn into 4 or more units. I'd like to request that this topic be put on the agenda in the very near future to discuss what it means for Burbank, similar as we are doing for SB 35. And furthermore, I think there should be a system in place where staff should have to notify neighbors if a project is coming in under SB 9 or SB 10. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your call. Next caller, please.
The next caller is Simon Hamill.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. I'm calling on a number of issues related to business tonight and some from the email I sent you. The first is the proposed parcel tax increase, which I'm told is a commercial tax increase. I'm asking you to please invite the executive officers of the largest affected companies to testify in public about how their businesses will respond to the tax increases. Give people confidence that you're making these decisions with the maximum possible information available to you. Amazon is less than 10% of the businesses that will have to pay this new city tax. Probably also they're going to have new federal taxes. And for others, strike or no strike by IATSE, it seems that it will cost production companies more money to operate in the future wherever they decide to operate. So it also seems like this is a recipe to almost guarantee some of these businesses will relocate to try and keep costs down, since it's one of the things they can control. For instance, Disney does not have to keep all or part of the business it has here now. When businesses leave, new businesses replace them, they probably won't generate nearly the amount of money the old one, being a long-established businesses, did when they take that business to another state, even if the land tax revenue remains the same. Companies like Disney and Warner Brothers are the golden geese of this town, and that is not hyperbole. Here's just an example. My friend's got his dream job being a Disney Imagineer. He's in his 30s, and he was looking to buy a home here in Burbank. But now if he wants to stay with the company, he has to move to Florida, along with all the employees in his division, by the end of next year. So it's not just housing costs that is driving the most valuable business away. Also, we've got a lot of big development projects coming up with plenty of time for you all to make sure our city doesn't generate any less total revenue related to any building project than any other city takes in for building similar building projects. It doesn't seem to have slowed down the building in any place near us, and it doesn't seem to have lower rent costs in Burbank by having lower costs here. Based on the speed that Tin Horn Flats got handled, there does not seem to be any reason that the council can't bring up an issue very quickly if you want to make sure we aren't missing out on opportunities to avoid needing any kind of property tax increases to cover our service costs. Finally, I think it's time to add a residency requirement for all senior department staff positions to accompany increases that are justified by keeping up with the cost of living in Burbank. It definitely sends a message when people find out that many senior staff members choose not to live in Burbank, even though we pay them enough to live here. Thanks for your consideration. Good night.
Thank you very much for your call. Next caller, please.
Mr. Mayor, we don't have any more callers on the line, so it's safe to close it.
Okay, I now declare the public comment period closed. This is the time where council members and city manager and city attorney can respond back to the community. Who would like to go first? Councilmember Schultz, you have the mic, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to everyone for calling in tonight. Ms. Cunningham, thank you for your comment. I do plan to raise that issue at the end of the meeting. Mr. City Manager, we did have 2 callers asking about our development impact fees and when that might be coming back. Could you address when that will be coming back and why we're taking time to bring that back before council?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yes, I think I had mentioned this at the last meeting, but yes, it is coming back at the end of the year. We're looking at it's currently scheduled for December. I'm not sure which meeting it is exactly, but it is scheduled for December. And that is the development impact fees, that consideration, that's in coordination with the Golden State and downtown specific plans. So those are kind of going at the concurrently, and we're looking at both of those in conjunction with the diffs.
Thank you very much.
Any other council member would like to respond? Council member Springer.
Yes, I would like to thank all the callers. And Mr. City Manager, I remember the report where we looked at a comparison report of our DIFs and our community benefits that we got from some of the recent developments. Can you please send us a copy of that? Am I remembering correctly?
Yes, we could provide you whatever we've had previously.
Thank you.
And then you'll get more information in December too.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think everything else, I'll just wait until we reach the item on the agenda. Thank you.
Any other council member, Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank everyone for calling in and sharing your thoughts with us. Ms. Cunningham, I agree with you. We need to have an explanation to the public in regards to what those two bills mean. Obviously, the governor already signed them, so they're in effect. So it'd be good for the public to understand what they are and what changes could be made. Other than that, I appreciate everybody calling in. Thank you very much.
Any other council member wish to weigh in? Seeing none, I want to thank everybody for calling in and participating during the public comment period and sharing your ideas and views with us. I would like to make one comment to the last caller. The courts have ruled that we cannot make it a requirement that employees have to live within the city. They're allowed to live wherever they want, and that is a ruling by the courts, because we tried that a long time ago in other cities, trying to get our police officers and firefighters to live in the city that we hire them, and that city got sued, and the courts ruled that you cannot require any employees to live within the city that they're employed by. But thank you for your call and your input. Moving on to the consent calendar, may be enacted in one motion. Mrs. Mullins, can you please read the consent calendar this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item number 1 is City Council minutes, and it's approving the minutes for the regular meeting of September 14 and the dark meeting of September 21st. Item 2, the adoption of resolution authorizing acceptance of California Office of Traffic Safety 2022 Selective Traffic Enforcement Program grant for $100,000 and amending the fiscal year 21-22 budget by appropriating funds. Item 3, approval of Fourth Amendment to Professional Services Agreement with ACOM Technical Services, Inc. for the preparation of the Golden State Specific Plan and associated environmental analysis. Item 4, adoption of finding to continue virtual meetings for City Council and other city boards and commissions and committees during the pandemic. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Before we vote on this, Mr. City Manager, just for the benefit of the members of the community regarding item number 2, if that can be in a short term presented to the members of the audience to know what's on the consent calendar on the grant?
Sure. I don't believe Chief Albanese is here, but I think that's Lieutenant Fromer. Okay, good. Thank you. I was getting nervous there. Okay.
I'm not pulling this for a discussion, council members, but I believe it's important that the public needs to know. If you wish to discuss this further, then I'll pull it for the back. But if there's no questions, I just want the members of the public to know about this particular item that we will be voting on, and then we'll take a vote on the consent calendar as a big package. Thank you for understanding, council members. Go ahead, Lieutenant. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mayor, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm here just to really answer some questions about the what item number 2 is, and that's to secure the funding for the California Office of Traffic Safety. It's a STEP grant. That's a Selective Traffic Enforcement Program grant. We're requesting, just to give you I'll give you a brief overview. We're requesting $100,000 this year. And the categories that this is going to apply, it will be DUI specifically. That'll be in the DUI checkpoints, DUI saturation, traffic enforcement, which is for us based on some recent events. We're all aware of the tragic collision on Glen Oaks earlier this year, just recently. So with that, we want to focus, have speed enforcement focused within that, and this grant would allow us to do that, as well as distracted driving, motorcycle safety, pedestrian and bicycle safety. And one of the other key components to the speeding aspect is this will give funding for traffic safety education in the form of presentations. We would really like to appeal to the target audience of our young drivers, who unfortunately will sometimes engage in this driving behavior where they're driving far too fast. So we really want to do focus and emphasize the traffic safety presentations for speeding and specifically racing. The other things that are going to assist with is this grant really does assist with equipment. We're looking to update a little bit of our DUI checkpoint supplies, which could be anywhere from lighting, signage, and other minor supplies. But then also for our LiDAR devices, what we use to capture accurate speeds of our citizens, to make sure that when we do make a decision to issue a citation as a corrective measure, we want to have accurate speeds. So that's what these devices are for. And we always like to keep the most up-to-date equipment in that area. But this $100,000 is extremely helpful. This supplements our normal routine patrols and our normal, for the traffic bureau, our motor officers when they're out there on patrol. This affords us the opportunity to bring officers in on a hiring basis outside of their normal duties. So it really does supplement, which we have several safety programs every month. And we can really try to utilize these on the days and nights when we see that we're having prevalent violations for certain traffic conditions. And this is overall just for the public safety of our roadways.
Council members, any questions regarding this one agenda item? Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lieutenant Fromer, I've been all the time that I've been on council, I've been just telling everybody, bring those grants to Burbank, right? Don't let them go anywhere else. So I want to congratulate you and your staff for being so proactive in this. Obviously, $100,000 can go a long way to build other programs as well. So anyway, thank you for being so proactive, and let's get some more grants coming to Burbank. Thank you.
I just have one short question. Will this grant money, the additional traffic enforcement, safety education, a lot of residents that I've been talking to, their biggest issue also outside of the speeding is the modified mufflers. Can that be related to this grant for enforcement?
Yeah, so this is going to be incorporated with the enforcement. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is that kind of goes hand in hand in tandem. So with the speeding violations and what we consider racing or exhibition of speed, a lot of these vehicles we are seeing have modified exhaust. So some of this will be absolutely some incorporated training for our officers, which some of this funding can be utilized for to send officers to much needed training. And when we get the additional training, the more we train individual officers, the more eyes and ears and qualified officers we have on the roadway to issue these types of citations.
Mr. City Manager, will we be able to get, toward the end of this grant, a report back of how many citations and what the categories of the citations, speed, pedestrian, whatever, so we can report back to the community what the officers did with the grant money when it's done?
Sure, we could look at some sort of reporting out.
Great.
We can include it in the weekly management report.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, community members, and most important, council members. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Schultz, you had a question?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I was jumping the gun. I was going to ask about item 4.
Oh, okay. We're done with this. Go ahead and ask if it's a question about item 4. Do you want to pull it for a discussion at the end of the meeting?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to make a very brief comment, but I'm supportive of the item. If that's
okay. Ask your question or your comment on item 4.
I'd just like to say I've gotten many, as we all have, inquiries from the public about a return to in-person meetings. While I personally support a return to in-person meetings, in this particular case, I do not, because we have not implemented a requirement that either the public or our employees be vaccinated. And therefore, I think it's the only responsible thing to do. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
And on that one there, I concur with you, Councilmember Schultz, because I'm dying to see people back in the chamber. I'm dying to have council members where I can see you eye to eye here as we discuss and debate. But CDC guidelines and everything, I don't want people getting sick on my watch, unnecessarily getting, so I agree with you. I definitely want people back in the chamber. Okay, Madam City Clerk, can you please call for the roll?
You need a motion.
Oh, may I get a motion and a second? Thank you.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Schultz, second by Councilmember Anthony.
Councilmember Schultz?
Yes.
Councilmember Anthony?
Yes.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Talamantes,
Yes.
Mayor Frutos.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 5. Okay, correction. There are 3 reports to the council this evening. The first one is for approval of BWP's updated residential EV charging station rebate program. Will Acting Marketing Manager Glenn O. Young please make the presentation? Welcome to our meeting, sir. Houston, we're having technical difficulty.
Drew, can you try to share the whole screen, not just the PowerPoint? And if that doesn't work, I can share it here, and Glenn, you can tell me when to click. Why don't we do that? I'm going to share here, and then Glenn, you'll be good to tell me when to click. 1 second. He's on the call. Okay, I think we're ready to start. As long as I can hear Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn, I still can't hear.
Glenn can't hear me?
Yeah, but he's still muted.
Okay, talk to me again, Glenn.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Thank you so much. All right, here we go. Thank you so much. I'm Glenn O'Young, Acting Marketing Manager at BWP, from the Customer Service and Marketing Division, and I'm joined by Drew.
Yeah, I'm Drew Kidd, Electrical Engineering Associate with the Customer Service and Marketing Division of Burbank Water and Power.
Thank you so much. We're here tonight. Next slide, please. We're here this evening to present to you the updated residential EV charging station rebate program and ask for your approval. Next, please. Oh, sorry, one before this. So what is the role of programs like these rebate programs for BWP and the city? Transportation emissions are identified as the #1 source of emissions in Burbank, as well as the state. Those are identified in our city's general plan, as well as the GGRP, which is being updated as the top source once again. And as such, in our integrated resource plan, we are called to engage the community to promote EV adoption to help clean the air here in Burbank. Next slide, please. So this slide shows an excerpt of BWP's 5-year marketing plan, focusing on transportation electrification, or TE. Highlighted in green are the different facets of TE. As I mentioned, in Burbank, transportation represents the top source of emissions at 43% of GHG, or greenhouse gas emissions. And I would remind the council that according to the state, 25% of our city falls into a DAC, or disadvantaged community. DACs are defined as areas throughout our state that have been identified as suffering the most from a combination of economic, health, and environmental burdens. And you'll see later when Drew walks you through the program that we're factoring that in as how we structure this rebate program. Next slide. So our objective in the TE space is to increase access to electrified transportation for all of Burbank's residents and visitors, and that includes commuters as well. We will drive EV adoption to facilitate our state's goals of reaching 100% new passenger car registrations becoming zero emission vehicles by 2035. And we're going to do that as well by building out an expansive public charging network throughout the city. Next slide. Thank you. So this slide represents our TE portfolio, which is all of our TE programs that we're engaged here in Burbank, working throughout the city, various departments. I just want to give you a quick recap on where we're at in our strategy and our plan. We did roll out our online EV buyer's guide, as you may recall, in January. That guide continues to build increasing traffic and promotes EV adoption and education to Burbankers and others who are considering changing to an EV. On the public charging front, you may recall that we just completed our installation of last fiscal year's installation of 26 new public charging ports throughout the city. Many of those ports, I will add, do provide overnight charging access to renters. We are on a path to electrify our fleet here at BWP, and we're collaborating closely with other departments throughout the city as we all study fleet electrification as part of our city's plans, but also in line with the state's goals and mandates. The updated commercial EV charger program that you approved is on track to launch this Friday morning. So we're working really hard to make that happen. And tonight, we're here to present to you an updated residential EV charging rebate program to address home charging here in Burbank. Next slide, please. I think that you might recall that I and many others love cars, and it's a very, very exciting time to be in the car market and specifically to be considering buying an EV. There are really more choices than ever before. It almost feels like every month that passes by, there's an announcement. So I would just say that EVs were once considered by many luxury vehicles. Many of our residents were priced out of this market, but with all the development and the proliferation of EVs, we see them now in different shapes and sizes, and most importantly, in different price points. I will point out, you may be aware of the Ford F-150 electric truck. That's considered by many to be a game changer because it's the highest volume selling vehicle in America, period. And Ford had to recently double their projections just on that particular truck. Ford is also joined by new names in the market like Lucid, Karma, Rivian, Canoo. We could go on and on, but the bottom line for us to consider is that there are just more choices at different price points. And speaking of price points, the used EV market accordingly is also heating up with more choices than ever. So there are a lot of ways that consumers can get into an EV today. And that makes this program really, really timely, we think, here at BWP. Next slide, please.
So let's talk about the current residential program. First, it offers the same $500 rebate amount to all residential customers. There's no additional incentives for DAC customers or if customers need a panel upgrade or choose smart charging. For single-family residences, eligible costs are limited to the charging station.
Slideshow for a second. I'm sorry about this. Apologies. Okay. That's fine. I can voice over. Hi, Glenn. Do you mind if I voice over the previous slide? What was there, or do you want to talk about it?
I would point to the teal, the bright blue line in the teal, where typically our current residential rebate program draws about 20 rebates a year. What's really interesting is if you look at the dark blue line, that's actually the number of charging station rebate permits that are issued each year. So more people are going out there and doing it without the rebate than with the rebate. And we think that that's primarily because of a few things. Thanks, Simone. One of the reasons why is that the current rebate is pretty limited. It offers the same rebate amount of $500 regardless of the scenario. It does not take into account DACs. It does not take into account the total cost of installation, which can include really expensive panel upgrades, which Drew will get into shortly. It doesn't promote smart charging. And also the current rebate limits limits it to one charging station per household. And we know from the research, and especially if we forecast down the line to 2035 with more adoption, we'll be looking at most families needing two charging stations or two ports per household. So these are some of the limitations with the current program. the key ones. And now I will turn it over to Drew to talk through the new program.
Thank you, Glenn. Next slide, please. So as Glenn mentioned, there are some key proposed changes for this new program. One, the rebate amounts in this program are tailored to actual costs, including panel upgrades. We're also providing a higher rebate amount in disadvantaged communities, which, as Glenn mentioned previously, are areas of the city that the state considers burdened through economic and environmental factors. So therefore, we and other parts of the state are trying to focus our spending into disadvantaged communities because they are the most affected by these emissions as well. We're also providing more rebates per household and a more flexible vehicle requirement. Next slide, please. The key design features of this new program is that first, it's available to single family and multi-unit dwelling residents. The eligible costs are now hardware, labor, and permitting, where previously we were just covering equipment costs with the program. The rebate limit is 2 rebates per residence instead of 1. For load management, this will be handled initially through our mandatory EV time of use rate, but we plan to address load management for residential customers through other smart charging initiatives in the future as well. And then similar to the design on our commercial rebate program, we're offering a premium rebate for customers in the disadvantaged communities, as I mentioned, and we're also adding enhancements for smart charging and panel upgrades. Also importantly, the funding for this program comes from the Low Carbon Fuel Standard program primarily, which is, as we've mentioned in previous presentations, a statewide program funded by the California Air Resources Board, where Burbank Water and Power receives funding that must be spent only on EV initiatives. Next slide, please. So the eligible costs in this program are the customer infrastructure. In a residential situation, any utility upgrades would be covered by the utility. So that customer infrastructure includes the house panel and any infrastructure going from the panel to the new charging stations. Next slide, please. And there's sort of 2 flavors to these installations. One where no panel upgrade is required, the home panel, and those costs are somewhere between $700 and $1,500 all in. Next slide, please. However, there is a situation where that panel upgrade is necessary and now costs the customer are somewhere between $2,000 and $4,500. That's more than double the cost of an installation with no panel upgrade required. Next slide, please. So as you can see, these panel upgrades are the single highest cost our residential customers may face. The proposed rebate amounts are the result of providing sufficient cost coverage if a panel upgrade is needed while keeping an eye on what other local utilities are offering. So this rebate will cover 20% to 75% of estimated customer costs, depending on the level of rebate that is administered and the complexity of the customer's installation. So with this cost coverage, Burbank Water and Power can accommodate roughly 100 rebates, although that number does vary based on what type of rebate is processed, which I'll get into a little bit more coming up. Next slide, please. So our first situation with rebate is what we're calling our standard rebate. So this is rebate outside of a disadvantaged community. And so this rebate will be $200 for non-smart charging stations and up to $500 for smart charging stations. Smart charging stations being charging stations that have some sort of network capability through like a cellular card or wireless that allows it to send information to us, and customer can interface with it that way as well. So in this standard rebate, next slide, please. In that standard rebate, if a panel upgrade is required, then Burbank Water and Power will provide up to an additional $750 to cover the costs of those panel upgrades. Next slide, please. In what we're calling our premium rebate, which is for those customers inside of a disadvantaged community, the rebate will be up to $300 for non-smart charging stations and up to $600 for smart charging stations. Next slide, please. In this case, in a disadvantaged community, if a panel upgrade is required, then Burbank Water and Power will provide up to an additional $900 to cover the cost of that panel upgrade. Next slide, please. Our rebate coverage is unique among other Southern California utilities. Without the panel upgrade, our rebate is in line with our peers. But right now, we're the only utility to offer the panel upgrade adder as part of this residential charging station rebate. And that's to reflect the true cost of the customer and help them overcome those barriers. Next slide, please. So I've talked about panels a lot, and I did want to illustrate what that can really mean for a home. You know, the electrical panel on the home is where the power comes into the home from the utility. And in an older home in Burbank from, say, the 50s or earlier, if that panel has never been upgraded, it's likely a 100 amp panel. To add a charging station, most of the time you'll be using a 40 amp breaker. So that's just a little less than half the capacity of one of these old panels here in Burbank. Next slide, please. So in many cases, a larger panel will be needed to fit one of these charging stations in a home. And that's our path to transportation electrification for our residents. Next slide, please. More than that, this program can then be a path to other building electrification, such as induction stoves, electric water heaters, and potentially even home solar and battery storage. This means it's a greater opportunity for electrification for our customers, and that helps us all move towards our greenhouse gas reduction goals. And I'm going to turn it back over to Glenn to talk about, once again, how this fits in with our other programs. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Drew. So when we look at the residential program, it stacks up with other key programs like the used EV rebate, the commercial charging station rebate, which again is launching this Friday, and our ongoing public charging efforts here to really attack EV adoption from multiple angles and ensure that ultimately one of the biggest concerns that customers have, which is range anxiety, is addressed by making sure that we promote charging stations at home, at work, and in the public. And also by, again, promoting awareness and adoption and helping customers make the decision to purchase their own vehicles. Next slide, please. Before we sign off, we did want to kind of bring this home and make it tangible. So just wanted to share with you that replacing one gas-powered vehicle, like a standard EV pictured here, the Chevy Bolt, that is the equivalent of roughly planting 239 trees. So that means that, to Drew's point, if we were to rebate 100 home charging stations, for example, and promote that number of new EVs, it's as if the city's facilitated the planting of 23,900 trees, which is pretty significant. Next slide, please. So with that, we're targeting a launch date for this residential EV rebate program of late February, mid to late February. We've budgeted, per our staff report, approximately $90,000 for the first year. Again, that is funded through LCFS credits. And we believe, depending on the mix, that we can accommodate about 100 rebates. So with that, we open it up to any questions that the council might have.
Council members, who would like to start first? Councilmember Anthony, followed by Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this presentation. I just have one question for now. What is a disadvantaged community as defined by the California EPA, and where in Burbank would we find one of those?
So there is a map that we'll be sure that we provide. And so this really comes out of SB 535, I believe, which is basically looking at, again, environmental factors, environmental fallout factors. Income is part of the equation. Based on the name, and it's a bit of a misnomer, it sounds kind of like it's speaking only about low to medium income, but it's really more driven, I think, by environmental factors. So we'll be sure, staff will provide that link and that map to you. We actually have a slide that we'll make sure we include as well.
Do you have that slide with you? Could you just pull it up real quick so the public can see what we're talking about, the areas that we're talking about?
I could pull up the map, I suppose.
Yeah, because it says on the report 25% of Burbank falls into a DAC. More than 25% of residents live in disadvantaged communities. And it's economic, health, and environmental burdens. So I'd like to see that map, just so people watching at home can go, oh, hey, that's my house. I'm going to apply for this.
Yeah, if I could share my screen, I could share that with you. I can speak to it more generally, that it does fall, in Burbank, it falls mostly along the 5 freeway corridor, as you would expect, as well as around the the Hollywood Burbank Airport. Oh, I see I have the screen sharing ability. Here we go. And so again, this is as is determined by SB 535, and these areas in red are what is considered a disadvantaged community here in Burbank.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you for the question.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I just have a couple of questions in regards to, I had that question exactly that was just asked. That was my thinking as well. What part of Burbank is disadvantaged? But nonetheless, thank you for showing us the map. My question is, will the addition of the ADUs passing SB 9 and SB 10 on R1 properties have any negative effects on our power system? Right now you're allowing, or the program will allow 2 units per residence, right? That's what I heard in your presentation.
That's correct. That's right.
So what about if people that live in ADUs are interested in having a unit? How does that come into play?
So yes, in each ADU, if it's considered, they would be eligible for up to 2 rebates. And we would take those grid impacts into account in our planning going forward.
I would just caveat that, if I may, with this is where it's a perfect example of the need to collaborate with other departments, right? So what comes to mind right off the top of my head is working with our strong partners in CDD and building and safety, because certainly while under the confines of this rebate program, it's defined as per address, right? So an ADU by definition may have a different address, right? But we would want to make sure that we're working with our partners in CDD. And then getting back to the grid question, that's something that our electric service division, power supply, and throughout BWP, this is what keeps us up at night, right? How do we make sure that everything that we do takes into account the ability to continue to provide reliable, affordable, sustainable energy? So you've certainly touched on that, sir.
And then I'd also like to say that, that's also why load management is part of the current plans and ongoing plans when we deploy these programs. We require customers to be part of those load management plans going forward so we can make sure that it does not adversely affect us at peak or other times as well.
According to your timeline, you want to launch this program February of 2022. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Is there anything that we can do to grandfather people, let's say for the past year, from February 2022 to February 2021, and incorporate them into this program? You know what I mean? Sometimes they say, I should have waited another 6 months. Is there any way we can go just at least 1 year, grandfather those people? It doesn't look like very many. The numbers don't seem that high.
Right.
If I'm correct.
Yes.
Would there be something we could do in that respect?
I think, so you're talking to a person who buys a iPhone right before they upgrade the iPhone, and so I've been there. I can certainly relate. I think how I would address the concern or the potential question, I don't want to label a concern, is that, if we were to deal with a customer like that or get that kind of call, what I would say is that under this new program, the current program would limit you to 1, right? And the new program actually provides that second one that we believe most households will need. And in many cases will provide more money than the current program does. And I think really the thing to anchor on in this program is the big ticket item of the panel upgrade that we're talking about. I think that's something that sets us apart currently, but I can tell you that I think other utilities are looking at that for all the reasons that we're looking at that as well. So I would be concerned about setting a precedent of with all of our rebate programs, not just this one, of saying, if you ended up being like Glenn, that you could come back and say, hey, can you sort of make me whole? And let me just say operationally, when we deal with our customers, we do make certain judgment calls sometimes. If and I think one thing that I will say that Drew and I and our team is going to do is as we get into January, particularly because these volumes are very low, we're going to talk to the folks who process these rebates and make sure that we're advising customers, hey, this rebate's about to change. That's coming right around the corner. Let's collect the application, but let's have empathy, right? So that's how I would suggest that we deal with your question.
So has there been any thought given to maybe notice the people that have installed the system, the one permitted system, and let them know now you're available to have a second one?
Absolutely. We're going to promote this program to everyone, including the folks that may have installed one. Again, as you can see from the table, and I think if we were to keep going back in the years, you're going to see more people have done it without a permit than with. But everyone's going to get the good news that, I don't want to be presumptuous, but assuming the council approves tonight, everyone's going to get the good news about this program.
I want to correct that. Sorry, without a rebate, not without a permit. We know they got. We think they had permits.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Sorry.
Yeah, so anybody that has one now will be notified that you're eligible.
Correct.
If you want it for a second, right?
Correct.
Because at the time they installed the one, that was all that was permitted, was one.
That's right. Yes, sir. And one other facet to answer your question is that perhaps some folks did that. And to Drew's point is, if you happen to be able to squeeze in that existing one, the one that you installed on your panel, that second one for many people will kick off the need to install a larger panel with more capacity. And again, that is where I think that we're really excited to see the ability to address the total cost as we've done on the commercial side. I think you've seen a pattern with our rebates lately that we want to look at the total cost from the customer's point of view, whether that's some of it is on our side or their side, what have you, but really what is the total cost and are we providing enough of a financial incentive to really move the needle? I will just be blunt with you and say, when you look at the teal and say 20 rebates a year, 9 rebates a year, we're not satisfied with that. We feel like we need to do more.
So I encourage staff to do that. Make sure you reach out to past, obviously, people that have installed them and advise them of the second one availability. And also, and you're right. In past years, when you look at the cost benefit, it just was too costly to put something in there. Even though I wanted to be proactive and do it, it was just too costly. But moving forward, I like this program. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you for the questions.
Thank you.
Councilmember Springer.
Thank you very much for your report. Thank you, Vice Mayor Talamantes, for your question. About ADUs, and many of those don't require parking. And with SB 9 and SB 10, we'll hear how that impacts us in a future agenda item.
Yes.
So how will that be handled when there is very, very limited on-site parking for, say, maybe 4 units or more? And are there extension cords that would go to the street?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Springer. The first part, I would say, again, I would say that we will plan on staying in our lane with our subject matter expertise, but we'll collaborate very closely with CDD in particular, and we do today on a variety of issues. So I think that one really needs to be looked at as a city and say, okay, on the one hand, we want to promote EV adoption, and if the state has its way, every vehicle is going to need a place to charge at home or at work, but balancing that with what happens when we start splitting up one parcel into many. And that I simply have to defer to our colleagues there, but that's definitely going to be a collaborative discussion. On the second one, we don't want to see extension cords charging electric vehicles from a safety perspective. There are long cords, but not that long, I think, to get you from the ADU to the street level. What I would say is that home charging is just one part of the solution. And so I think if you go back to our portfolio, home charging is a very important part of the solution. But the saying goes in our space, we don't own our own gas stations, right? So home charging is convenient, it's good, it's actually good for the grid because you can spread out that charging over a longer period of time. But also, we're always in our hearts thinking about people who don't have access to home charging. Public charging is really important. Curbside charging is really important. Someday, I hope charging in BSD schools will be important at workplace. And so it is a very important part of the mix, but by no means should we consider it the only place that we want people to charge. And I hope that addresses your questions.
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Springer. Any other council member wish to weigh in? Councilmember Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excellent presentation, excellent staff report. Thank you to my colleagues who asked most of the questions I had written down. I just had one remaining question. So in the staff report, I see that when this went to the BWP board, staff was initially recommending that time of use rates not be required. I understand that the board, a majority of the board, decided no, we would rather prefer to maintain that requirement. So I was just wondering if you could give me a little more background. What was the rationale behind the staff recommendation? What was the rationale behind the board's recommendation?
Thank you so much for the question, and I can address that. Ultimately, we were driven when we crafted this to see what were all the barriers to adoption, and what was all the feedback that Drew, myself, and others got. And for some customers, and you can see the volumes here are not big, but every voice matters, and so we really do listen, and we've heard some feedback from the Burbank residents saying, I don't really like being forced to put on this TOU rate. For some people, it's not understanding it. For some who actually have solar systems, they're used to banking more credits, and the complexity of the current rate meant that they might financially lose out a little. Ultimately, we were coming at it from a customer satisfaction, if you will, angle. I think our board gave very wise, and it's ironic actually, because we work at a utility and we love the idea of TOU because that helps you kind of protect the grid to make sure that we're using clean energy and so on and so forth. So it's a great lever that we're exploring, and we continue to go down that path. But we were appreciative of the guidance from our board where they said, look, ultimately that is where we're headed. That is the right thing to do. Customers in other territories, for example, Edison and others who have TOU are used to the idea that there are certain, when it's green, it's clean, and when it's red, it's dead, is kind of the saying goes, right? So there are certain hours where we're not using renewable energy as much. And so that was the guidance the board gave us, and that was, reflected in our staff report. You may have seen in the staff report, there was a dissenting vote, which we're kind of not used to. That was actually not driven so much by the TOU as much as this idea of a DAC. Why are we giving more to a DAC than a non-DAC? Why aren't we choosing one amount? And we explained, our position, which is when you look at that map, we just want to do at staff level. We feel it's that's how our commercial EV program was designed, and that's kind of our approach, was to try and tackle on that DAC by doing it this way. I think there is a very valid point that, well, it's along the freeways, and by bonusing, are we really doing anything? I think staff erred on the side of, well, we really want to try, and so that's kind of what that one dissenting vote, I think, was more about the DACs than the TOU.
Yeah, and I just want to add too, for DACs, that low carbon fuel standard funding requires spending in DACs as well. So it's because it's seen as a good way to have more transportation electrification in those areas.
Thank you very much for the thorough explanations. I'm supportive of the recommendation.
Thank you.
Any other comments, concerns, council members, before I weigh in last, and then I'll call for the vote? Seeing none, then I'll share my 2 cents, my thoughts on this item. So in preparation for this, I'm only going to echo what some of the council members said. I'm not going to dive into the nitty and the gritty because I will be supporting this, but here's some concerns moving forward. So I live up by the airport, so I'm in the targeted disadvantaged environmental community. So I've been kind of eyeballing that new Mustang Mach electric vehicle. So I had some electric work done at my house, and I called Powell Electric, right? They've got a special, $78. I had some wiring done, and I started saying, hey, I think I'm getting ready to move forward and getting my first electric vehicle. And they said, great. So they look at my circuit breaker. I think I kind of represent the average of a 1940s house with never done any electrical upgrading. And they needed to do ABC Wazoo for the increased gigawatts for the new car coming in. And he said, we need to move your panel over here. This is where Water and Power wants it. We will charge you $10,000 additional permit fees. So when you're only giving a rebate of $900 and your report states that the average cost for a panel DAC upgrade is $4,500, I can tell you, and I'm not trying to beat up the author of the staff report, But in preparation for this, since I had Powell Electric there, it takes me out of the ball game to really try to get an electric vehicle, because I'm going to have to spend, according to the new standards of the utility, to get my panel, a minimum of 10 grand. And that includes removing the old panel from within inside the house, built in 1940, to outside. So I guess moving forward, in your discussions, as monies come available through grants, especially with the goal of the governor in 2035 of no more sales of, gasoline burning engines, the reality is for an average older home, it's a minimum of $10,000 based on the utilities requirements. So I just think that maybe in the future I will be supporting the staff report, because it's important I move this forward with my colleagues. But the reality is, if you do something in the future, pick somebody's house, not necessarily the mayor's house, but pick somebody's house and really get a quantifiable, realistic assessment, because to offer me, as a resident, a $900 rebate to cover pretty much, it's going to be about $13,000, because you have to re-stucco where they're going to build, and they're going to take out the old panel. So it's a lot of work that I think that there should be hopefully a bigger rebate for other residents that maybe are retired, fixed income, but they also are getting ready to move to the next vehicle that they're going to get. And those are my 2 cents. I've said enough. Again, I'm not trying to beat up the author, but that's just not realistic, especially after.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to let you know, I'll do that work for $6,500.
Okay, $6,500. Got it. Okay, may I call for the motion and the second on that note? Who would like to make the motion?
So moved.
Okay, so the motion was, I didn't see who said it first. Was it Councilmember Springer or Councilmember Schultz? Rolling dice, let me pick on Councilmember Springer, second by Councilmember Schultz. If there's any more discussion, council members, I'm going to call for the vote. Madam City Clerk?
Councilmember Springer,
Yes.
Councilmember Schultz,
Yes.
Councilmember Anthony,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Talamantes,
Yes.
Mayor Frutos.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much for the
Mr.
report, staff. Oh, yes, Vice Mayor.
Real quick before we leave this item, now can a landlord ask to install one of these panels or two at a location? Does it have to be owner occupied?
No, as long as it's a residence, it can. And we are working on a separate track for multi-unit dwellings. But the short answer is that if the landlord or the property owner is okay with it, they can certainly apply for this program.
Yeah, and in addition to that, the commercial rebate is available for the landlords as well. So if it's coming through them, they can go through the commercial rebate. If it's coming from their resident, it comes from this residential rebate. So there's a chance for them to both get involved.
Great news. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, moving on to our next report is an update on staffing processes for the Burbank Police Department's Field Production Safety Services. Will Administrative Analyst Gina Kozai please present the report? Oh, Chief.
So I'm going to do the preamble and introduce Gina, if I can, please.
You know you can,
just,
sir.
Lay the foundation. Again, this will be the last time that I greet you all tonight. So Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. So we believe the report that was proffered provides a comprehensive summary of the process. If you harken back to 2019, when we were kind of at the height of our film permits, when there was 1,691 film permits issued, that was a lot of work for 1 year. Then we had the pandemic, and there was an obvious reduction of the film permit applications because there was a suspension, a hiatus. But year to date, that we're up to 575 film permits. So in our film permit office, we have a truly subject matter expert, and that is Gina Kozai. So myself, Captain Kremens, and even Fromer go to her to figure out how we are managing that process. So her and she'll have one other assistant periodically that does all the behind the scenes stuff to make it happen. So that's a lot of film permits. When you look at the number of permits in Glendale, Pasadena, where we have many more than they do. So this is Gina's maiden voyage presenting to council. So, but understand that in this room, in our building rather, she is the most knowledgeable about film permits and how all the operational stuff occurs to make it happen. So I'm going to introduce Gina, and again, it's her maiden voyage. So, ma'am.
Good evening, Council.
Hi, welcome.
Hi. My name is Gina Kozai, and I work in the Film Permit Office. I'm the admin analyst in the Traffic Bureau. Tonight, I'm presenting an overview of the process for staffing safety personnel to film production locations within the city and review alternative options for staffing. Currently, we staff permits with police personnel when there's any filming and/or equipment placed on public property, which is approximately 33% of the permit applications submitted. Requests that would require an officer can include any of the following conditions: filming on sidewalks or other public right-of-ways or city-owned property, oversized vehicles on public streets, both residential and commercial, street and/or lane closures, intermittent traffic control, sensitive areas, either frequently filmed or areas with frequently expressed concerns, simulated law enforcement activity, public safety personnel impersonation, and drones. The primary purpose of staffing film production locations with police officers is to provide and ensure public safety without disrupting the daily operations of patrol, with unnecessary calls for service related to filming. The most significant benefit to assigning a police officer to a film site is his or her authority to balance the needs of both the community and the production companies for the duration of the shoot. Police personnel serve as an integral part of minimizing the impact on the community, especially as the filming demands in Burbank have increased from 646 permits issued in 2013 to its highest number of 1,691 in 2019. The City of Burbank also issues more permits than the neighboring cities of Glendale and Pasadena. For instance, when comparing each city's highest numbers of permits issued in a calendar year, Burbank issued approximately 5 times as many permits as Glendale and more than 3 times as many film permits in Pasadena. Granted, not every film permit issued requires officers to be assigned, and the Film Permit Office highly encourages and actively works with production companies to remain contained entirely on private property. However, when production companies need to use public property for any filming purposes, the Film Permit Office requires notification to and surveys from a 300-foot radius to surrounding businesses and residents to allow for any potential conflicts or concerns to be addressed prior to filming. But the officers on site during the film activities are the most effective in mitigating all outstanding concerns. The most common concerns expressed are parking and other traffic-related issues. Since the officer is scheduled 30 minutes prior to the arrival of the production company, the officer is able to run license plates of vehicles left in the posted areas and try to contact the owners to move the car rather than upsetting the community by issuing citations or impounding vehicles immediately. The officer plays a critical role in ensuring that the production companies arrive in compliance with all California vehicle and Burbank municipal codes, conditions of the film permit and associated permits, like a street use permit if it's issued. Officers are responsible for correcting any conditions that pose a safety hazard, such as equipment affecting traffic lanes, causing traffic congestion, or blocking sidewalks. Officers also have the authority to hold traffic so cars can enter an intersection or exit a driveway safely. Law enforcement personnel have prevented serious dangers and ultimately eliminated the need for patrol from being dispatched to correct violations. Production companies also benefit from having an officer assigned to their permits because officers have the authority to approve reasonable impromptu requests with protecting the public and the overall interests of the city in mind. Having an officer to grant the last-minute requests also alleviates from having office staff available at all times to authorize additional requests from production companies. Alternative staffing sources can be further explored, but the Film Permit Office would have to piecemeal various personnel types to provide all the functions one police officer can provide. For example, flagsmen may be able to perform some traffic control duties, but cannot enforce any conditions of a film permit or a street use permit. On the same note, code enforcement officers can offer limited monitoring strictly within the scope of the approved permit, but cannot perform ITC or enforce any vehicle or safety violations, especially pertaining to intermittent traffic control and street closures. It is also important to note that the community appreciates having the additional police presence, which may not necessarily be shared with alternative staffing sources. This is also most likely the reason that the community does not object to having Glendale Police work film jobs in our city. Since working film production details is strictly voluntary for the officers are only able to work on days that do not conflict with their regular workload, including court dates and being on call. The other limiting factor in officer availability is the staffing shortages within the department that require off-duty officers to backfill positions necessary to support daily operations. Officers are free to sign up for overtime, and the Film Permit Office sends department-wide offers to staff film permits on an overtime basis. The unfilled shifts are then sent to Glendale police officers, who possess all the same enforcement authority as Burbank police officers, as well as a familiarity and understanding of Burbank police and city policies governing filming activities. This collaboration has been in effect since 2011 and has eliminated calls for service related to filming and allowed our city to maintain the same level of service that the Burbank community values. Thank you for your time. I hope this provides an insight to our film permit staffing process, and I'm available for any further questions.
Vice Mayor, this was your agenda. You take the lead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Kozai, thank you for the report. Extremely in-depth and valuable information for the entire council and the community who's watching as well. The reason I brought this agenda item forward is because there were many residents in the community that brought it to my attention, asking, why is there Glendale Police Department in Burbank? So you're right. So I started looking at it, and as I noticed driving down over a period of several months, not a couple of days, but several months, there was a lot of Glendale police cars in Burbank. So that's one of the reasons I requested. My intent for this request was never to eliminate police officers. As a former safety officer, I know the benefit of having a police officer on a studio shoot. Very valuable, because they do have the power. They do have the power. So, having said that, I apologize for being misunderstood in my request. Excellent report. I just have a couple of questions from the report. On the second page, it says, per department policy, Burbank police officers are limited to working a maximum of 14 hours within a one-day, 24-hour period to preserve their health and safety. Now, is there also a policy that a police officer cannot work a studio job given, let's say I start my shift at 7 in the morning on Monday morning, can I go right to 6 o'clock in the morning?
I believe there has to be 8 hours in between.
There is a policy of the 8 hours in?
Yes.
Okay. That just jumped out at me. Now, in regards to your report of the 1,600, and the chief brought those up as well. For all those, I know we have a New York Film Academy here. A lot of students do filming. How many of these 1,600s were student permits that didn't require any officer?
At the time, it was probably 25%, but obviously school and on-campus learning was suspended in 2020. So now that they're returning, it's only about 10% of the film permits.
So they're doing less?
Yeah.
Students are doing less filming?
Yes.
And out of these 1,600, how many required a police officer?
The last I looked, it was about 20 to 25% for the 1,600. Currently, we're doing 33%.
25% of 1,600 is some quick math. Is
probably around 400.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see what else did I have here. And on the last page, I'm not sure who wrote this. I'm assuming you wrote this report. It says that staff recommends the continued use of Burbank Police Department officers to provide safety services for filming activities. And I agree with that 110%. So like I just stated earlier, my intent was not to remove the say police officers from their jobs. It was just to look to see when you need one or two or three, can we just get away with one police officer, possibly look into other that can serve the purpose of traffic control or arranging the trucks and have a police officer on to make the decisions of what's going to be done and what's not going to be done. But anyway, thank you for the report, and I just want to commend you and the entire film permit staff for presenting this, and congratulations on the 1,600 plus.
Thank
I hope we
you.
get that big as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Any other council member have a comment or question? Councilmember Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report. I wanted to ask two things. What happens when a film shoot goes over 14 hours? Do we have to get a different officer to come over and relieve the original?
Yeah, that's very common. Most film permits try to blanket from 7 to 10 p.m. at night, so I have to split them into 2 shifts, so 2 officers are needed.
Okay, and then what constitutes a student film permit? What are the requirements for that? Do they have to be approved by the school? Does it have an hour requirement, like a time limit?
They have to provide a copy of their valid student ID with a valid student ID number and an official school letter on official school letterhead stating that they're a current student in good standing and the production is being made for academic purposes or requirements rather than commercial purposes.
Okay, and do we have a limit on how many days a student permit can go out and do what they need to do? Like, can they block the streets just like a regular commercial film?
They can, but they're also held to the same requirements as another non-student production company would be submitted to. So they have to notify the area or they have to survey the surrounding 300-foot radius. They also would be charged for full price for the officers that are assigned to the permit.
Okay, so we do have some officers that do student filming, and it's based on what the student film requires. Yes. Is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So smaller student films can get away without all of the extra stuff, but if they're going to go big, if it's a master's thesis or a graduate program, and they're doing a full scene, then they're under the same qualifications.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm supportive of this. I'll tell you, I've worked on a number of sets, not just where, fans and the public are trying to, get on set and it takes an officer to stop that. But I've also seen some lower budget commercial enterprises try to pull some illegal things to try to get a shot.
Yeah.
Having an office, I've been on two different kinds of sets. One where there's an officer there saying, no, you absolutely cannot do that. And one where it's a security guard hired by the production company and his job is dependent on him saying yes. So no, I would rather prefer a sworn officer keeping everybody in line. Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Councilmember Springer.
Yes, thank you for your report. I have no questions. Great job.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schultz, you want to close it up before I weigh in?
No questions, Mr. Mayor, but great job, staff. Excellent report.
Okay, unless I don't see that we're going to add anything, this is a note and file. It does say if we wanted to provide direction, but it seems like we're pretty okay. So note and file, no action needed, correct, Madam City Clerk? Just note and file, no action required?
That's fine. Yes. Got it.
Okay.
Note and file.
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief and Lieutenant and Captain Cremens. Okay, our last report is a discussion of a potential parcel tax. Will our top lawyer, Ms. Albanos, please make the presentation?
Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. I have to disclose to the public that my wife is an employee of NBC Universal, a subsidiary of Comcast. After consulting with the City Attorney's Office and the Fair Political Practices Commission and acting upon their advice and at the direction, I'm unfortunately recusing myself from this agenda item based upon a potential conflict of interest. I'll be leaving the virtual meeting at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Does Ms. Simone McFarland, do we have his cell number to call him when this agenda is over? Okay, great. Turn off your, oh, he's already off. Okay, Madam City Attorney, can you please make the presentation?
Thank you very much. Ooh. That's not me. I have my audio off. And that's why. It's always me. I never think it's me. I always think it's the computer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, and members of staff that's watching. This is a report in response to a first step that was requested by Councilmember Anthony during the August 10th City Council meeting. And the request was to ask staff to bring back information about a potential parcel tax and advisory measure having the proceeds be shared with Burbank Unified School District. And prior to this request being made on August 10th, the council member had asked for an informational item on recent tax measures and the mechanics of placing a ballot measure for a tax measure on the ballot. So we did an informational item memo to council dated August 5th that preceded that, and it's an attachment to the report for tonight. As a one step, this is a very brief report that just gives basic information, and then what we'll be seeking is whether there's any direction from the council to move forward or not. So just briefly, a parcel tax is what we call an excise tax, and it's normally done on the privilege of consuming municipal services. It's generally an annual tax based on either a flat rate per non-vacant parcels or a rate that varies depending on use and size or number of units or both of each parcels. Under California Constitution, a parcel tax imposed by the City Council is a special tax and is subject to voter approval like all taxes, but in this case, it requires a 2/3 supermajority vote of the electorate for passage, and that's 66.67%. So for the council to put a parcel tax on, it would require a 2/3 vote for passage. So the second part was, can we do an advisory measure like the city of Pasadena did? And I also mentioned the city of Santa Monica. So Santa Monica and Pasadena both did general taxes. It was their sales tax. And accompanying that, they did an advisory measure asking whether some of the proceeds should go to their school districts. And the reason that happens is when it's a general tax, like a sales tax, just like our Measure P was a sales tax, all you need is a simple majority vote to pass it, 51%. If you said in the measure this revenue will partly go to the school district, then it becomes a special tax and it would be subject to the 2/3 majority, supermajority. So when a city that's imposing a general tax wants to have a sense from their community of what the money should be spent on, whether it be for another outside entity or for specific services in their own city, rather than including it in the tax measure, they'll do what we call an advisory measure. That measure is not binding on the city council, although obviously if an advisory measure is passed by more than a majority, I'm sure the council will consider what it says. But in this instance, if the council were to choose to put a parcel tax on, that parcel tax already subject to supermajority. So the advisory measure in a way doesn't really add anything. My other concern is that a parcel tax has to be written. And so I didn't recommend we hire an outsider to do this. My recommendation is if the council wants further information and directs us to come back with a second step report, I would seek the advice of outside counsel that specializes in this area, because parcel tax have to be written a specific way so that they're not subject to challenge as a property tax. Cities are not allowed to implement property taxes. So you have to be very, very careful in the way it's written. Also, because the tax often is put in terms of availability of municipal services, and that's why you're taxing the user, then because of that, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Because you have to specify the municipal services, you're sort of putting a story together as to why this tax is being done. I have a concern that how we'd have to take special care to how to write one to be able to share a parcel tax revenue with the school district. It may require actually naming the school district in the measure. So that's that part. So the last part is when I said we would want to bring in outside counsel to ensure that the parcel tax is not subject to a challenge as a property tax, and also to draft it so that the revenue could be shared with the school district if that was the direction from the city council. And I, at this moment in time, can't say to you that absolutely 100% it could be done that way. It is a very, very specialized area, these types of taxes. And I do want, it was brought up, but I think it is worth raising the issue that if the council were to do such a thing and it was passed, the school district then could do one in the future, but there already would be a parcel tax that's partly, supporting them. And as one of the callers stated, and what's in that August 5th informational is that the school district was not successful in either of their parcel tax measures. That's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions if are having to do with this report. Thank you.
Councilmember Anthony, this is your agenda item. Why don't you lead us in the discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Albano, for that report. I appreciate it. I want to just go back real quick and talk about where this came from. So I personally went out and I knocked on doors for Measure I and Measure QS with the school district because, my son goes to BUSD and they were hurting for money. And both times, they came close, 64.12%, 64.33%. Definitely a majority, but not a super majority. And one of the things that I kept hearing from the folks who wanted to support it but didn't vote for those two measures was that it taxed single-family homes, apartment buildings, and small businesses. So in my discussions with folks about a parcel tax, dozens and dozens of people told me they would have voted for it if there was some exemptions to those, residential and small businesses. So I got to talking and looking around, and I thought to myself, well, we're looking at what, 2.5%. That's what, 1,200, 1,500 votes. If we wrote a parcel tax from the city and we had it exempt small parcels, and my original thinking was 250,000 square feet, 500,000 square feet, which would exempt pretty much every apartment building, every small, plot that had small businesses on it. We're talking the top 10, 15, maybe 20 plots in the whole city. Then it would do the two things that voters were looking for, to exempt homes and apartments and to exempt small businesses and small commercial property. And so I thought to myself, well, if the city took this on and we did it ourselves, we have a number of things that we are looking to pay for. We've got that, $100 million library staring us down over the next couple decades. We've got, rental assistance. We're, looking at homeless services. We're looking to try to convert some affordable housing. All of this stuff, it's going to add up over the next couple of years. And so I figured between us and the school district that desperately needs this money, I think we can put something together and put the full weight of the city behind it versus, and I appreciate last year during March of last year that all 5 council members at that time endorsed the parcel tax from the school district, the Measure QS. That was really great. And, it helped convert a lot of folks. And if you notice, it actually jumped. We got a good almost a third of a percentage point there from Measure I to Measure QS. So I think if we went out and we did it ourselves, I think we could get that 2/3, and putting the advisory measure there and sharing the money with the school district, I think it would benefit, the parents and the families of the city. And it would get us, back to that world-class city that we're always talking about. If we don't have a thriving school district, I think we're going to be stuck, and we're going to start to see good teachers leave, and we're going to start to see the schools deteriorate. And I want to just prevent that from happening. So that's why I brought it, and I'd love to hear my colleagues' thoughts on this and what we'd like to do moving forward.
Council members, Vice Mayor, or Councilman Springer, would you like to go next? I don't want to pick anybody. Vice Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll step up. It's obviously, I've been a big supporter of the schools for many years. All the years that my kids were in school, my wife and I were involved in PTA, school site councils. I was on the oversight committee, the original oversight committee. I was chairman for 5 years on the schools oversight committee. So I've been a big supporter. But now as a council member, I've got to weigh the interest of the community against what we've already done. I mean, we've already, June 2018, Measure T, November 2018, Measure P, and those were successful. They passed. Now the school district put forth a couple of measures, QS and I, that were not successful. It was close. It was definitely close. 64.33, 64.12. But you need that 66 plus to make it happen. And I just can't. And I've been thinking a lot about this because of the fact I know they need money, and I know they've had to make some cuts. And I just kind of like what we've done over the years. I've lived through those cuts. A couple of council members weren't here, but I've lived through the cuts that we had to make. The mayor's been here. Councilmember Springer has been here making those cuts as well for the city. It's not easy. It's a hard job. But like I was told early on by a former city manager, Mike Flagg, congratulations on getting elected. Now here the budget books, we have to cut $7 million from the budget. It's just not easy every time we have to do that. And we do it as a body, obviously. And nobody likes to do that. So it would be very hard for me to go out to the public again, since we just did it 2.5 years ago, and ask them for another piece of the pie. And especially during these times when companies are moving out. We've seen it in Burbank. We're losing companies. They're moving elsewhere. Florida, for example. Part of Disney's going out there. And there was a big message at this latest recall that California is not business friendly. So this would just add fuel to the fire. So unless somebody can convince me otherwise, right now I really don't look like I'm going to support this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Springer.
Yes, actually, I have a lot, and I have some questions, and I'll ask these questions and I'll make my comments for the benefit of our community. Because we first heard about this in January 2021, there was a kickoff for it. It was Tax Amazon, but it's not a Tax Amazon. It's Tax Our Studios, Tax 9 Hotels, the Heights Assisted Living, the Empire Center, the mall, about 15 warehouses. And then on our report, it says that it's to share with our schools. But there's this report from the Tax Amazon Committee that says it's going to be used for the Green New Deal, and I support sustainability. It's for mental health, affordable social housing built with union wages and union labor and living wages, which I also support. Funding for direct COVID relief to cover the unpaid rent, mortgage, and utilities for renters, homeowners, and small businesses due to COVID. So I feel like it's misleading on here to say it's for our Burbank schools. This from the Tax Amazon campaign is dated June 2021. I was thinking, well, maybe they changed their minds. So I'm really disappointed because I feel like this is so misleading to our community. It puts us in a bad spot that we don't support our schools. We supported our schools, we have. And Prop 15 also failed at the state level. It was an initiative that would generate $11 billion at a cost to the California economy of $73 billion. So I want our community to know why I did not support that, though people asked me to. And so I have some questions for you, Councilmember Anthony. What did you tell the Magnolia Park Merchants Association? What did you promise them if they supported this measure? Because we got something from them also.
I told them that, if the parcel exemption was big enough, it wasn't going to hit any of the parcels in Magnolia Park. Because one of the reports that I saw was something to the extent where we exempt the first 100,000 square feet, which is way too small, because that's going to get every little parcel in Magnolia. It's going to get all the little strip malls. So for me, I told them I wouldn't support something that small. It would have to be much, much bigger to where it only hits, like you said, the places like Empire Center, where it's Walmart and Target, and like the Avion where Amazon is coming in. So only the really, really big spots. That's what I talked to them about.
Okay, because they're listening. And also about Avion has some creative industrial spaces. There are some small spaces there occupied by small tenants. So this isn't Tax Amazon, it's Tax Avion, and it's taxing all of those tenants there. And with triple net leases, tax increases are passed to the tenant. So I'm not in the mood to kick them to the curb. And so with which school board members have you collaborated?
School boards haven't put input on this.
Okay. And in Seattle is not comparable to Burbank. Seattle is a city of 750,000 people. It's world headquarters for Amazon. The staff is 75,000 people, with Bellevue anticipating another 25,000 employees. Does the Amazon tax in Burbank, does it tax other properties? Does it tax businesses that are 100,000 square feet? Does it tax hotels and warehouses and shopping centers and malls?
Well, the Seattle tax, if I'm not mistaken, gets all of their big businesses, not just Amazon. And if we scaled it down, Seattle, I believe their annual city budget about $6.5 billion. Ours is about half, 600 million. So we're at like 10% of that. And their tax, what they call the Tax Amazon, raised 200 million. So if we scale that by 10, we're really only looking at $20 million. And honestly, 20 million, you split that 50-50 with the school district. The school district was only trying to raise 9.5 million on the last two. So really, that's all I was looking at, $20 million on, any property over 500,000 square feet. It's not going to be that much. I honestly, it's not that much.
$100 million is what I've read projected in the Tax Amazon campaign.
Well, I mean, not to point out the obvious, but the Tax Amazon campaign is not in this discussion. It's us. Like, if we want it to be $10 million or $30 million, if we want it to be 500,000 square feet or whatever, I mean, here, it's us.
I'm just doing this for the benefit of our residents because there's credibility at stake here. And also, the city of Burbank competes with 87 other cities in LA County. 87 other cities, and with every major metropolitan area in this country, as we've recently seen with Disney moving some of its employees to Florida. Other corporations have moved out of Southern California. Texas is a big draw for them. So
yeah, but like, if you were an employee, then you'd have to move to Florida and Texas, and nobody wants to do that. I will say there are other cities that have passed parcel taxes, and they're not losing businesses.
What could you please tell us what they are?
Oh boy, there was a bunch this last year. I mean, I can look it up if you give me a second.
You should have that, like, right in front of you. Okay, the most recent communication I've received says that it will be used for debt forgiveness for renters, for homeowners, COVID relief to cover unpaid rent, mortgage, utilities, permanent affordable social housing, public schools, Green New Deal, mental health. And so this is what is circulating, and our residents are confused about what is Tax Amazon. And it's not Tax Amazon, it's tax our business community, and the major hit to our business community is $100 million. And that doesn't include the ripple, that doesn't include the small businesses that are reliant on the bigger ones. I have a friend who repairs lighting for the entertainment business, and their customers are some of the large studios. And she doesn't support this. She didn't understand this. She was confused by this on the ballot. So I think I've made my point. I don't support this because it took Burbank 30 years to recover from the exit of Lockheed, and we recognize that housing has to keep up. And we have made a goal of 12,000 housing units by 2035. It was, I think the previous city managers were given orders to economic development, and Burbank succeeded in becoming the entertainment capital of the world. And to try and tear that down is unwise. And
I don't think this is going to tear that down. I mean, I just have a quick list just in the last year. Fresno, Marin County, LA, Sonoma, they all passed parcel taxes, and we don't see a big job loss or exodus of businesses. Lockheed didn't leave because we passed a tax. They just didn't want to have an industrial center in a place that was becoming more and more suburban. There was a number of reasons why they left. But at the end of the day, there's no way that we can simply determine our policies by whatever corporation is dictating to us. If we allow the biggest businesses in Burbank to tell us what to do, then we're not really working in the interest of the electorate. We're only working in the interest of corporations. So, I think we could pass a nominal tax. And honestly, it wouldn't hurt anybody. It'll help the schools. It'll get a much needed revenue for some things that we know we need to pay for, especially like affordable housing, like you said. And we don't have to do anything that some flyer tells us. That's, high hopes and best dreams and top wishes, but I mean, we're here now and we can decide what we do with it. I'm just saying, I think if we can do a very modest proposal and not have to shoot for the moon and pass something very simple.
Well, as several callers stated, our voters, the electorate, did not pass to school funding. City Council supported those unanimously.
No, I understand that. And, you know, 64%, that's a big number. And I feel we owe it to that 64% that voted for those parcel taxes to see if we can try to just get that extra 2%. And if we don't, we don't. I just think it's up to us to try to craft something better than what the school district tried to put forward and see if we can do it. That's, you know, that's just my thought.
I do not support this.
Are you done, Councilmember Springer?
I am. I just, you know, I hope our residents know that we are working hard for them. We are working hard for affordable housing and jobs. If your kids want to work here when they get out of school, we want them to be able to live here and work here. We want them to have affordable housing and good paying jobs. And we have a plan to do that. And I feel like this is so very, very misleading. And it really, really makes me mad that it's labeled for schools, and then there's this whole list of other things from $9 million to $100 million is a huge jump. And so, no, I will not be supporting this.
Thank you, Councilman. I didn't want to cut you off. Are you done with your points, Councilman Springer? Because I do not want to cut you off.
Thank you.
Okay. I have to ask you, Councilmember Anthony, how come you didn't talk to the school district? If this was a true partnership with them, I'm just curious, did you partner with them? Did you talk to them? Did you ask them for their support for this? Because this is a true partnership if we move this to the second step.
No, I understand that. I just didn't want to violate any Brown Act issues with other elected officials if they have to do something on their end. I didn't want to work as an intermediary.
Well, it's not a Brown Act to reach out to them because it's our agenda. That's a total different government body. I guess where I'm going with this.
Sure, but they may weigh in later. And like if we put something on the ballot, they could go out and endorse it or hold a referendum to like, I don't know what it could be. But I will tell you, before I got on council, I did talk to many of the school board members about, you know, if, you know, shoulda, coulda, woulda, what would they have done differently on the parcel tax if we could have done it differently? And so for me, the conversations I had over the summer were, well, hey, is there a way to write a parcel tax pretty much generating exactly what we needed, but to really address those issues that people had about taxing their homes and taxing their apartments and their small businesses. And so that's really where this conversation came from. And I thought, you know, it's a reasonable request. I think that if we put our heads together, we could come up with something. You know, they're like, you know, I see the school district as, you know, a little kid sister that we got to take care of. And if they really need something and we have the power and the opportunity to do so, I think if we just simply start the discussion and see what that would look like, I'm sure they would have some input. I mean, I have all the old information from Measure I and Measure QS that I've been poring over. And I just think that there's a way to get it done. There's a way to get that last 2.5% with the full power and voice of the city of Burbank, and craft that parcel tax language to something that we could get behind and that we could support. That's you know, that's what I thought.
I thank you for your thoughts, Councilmember Anthony, but here's the reason why I'm not going to support it, and it's going to go down because we have 3 votes already if we were to call for the vote. One, I am surprised that the school board would not have reached out to the mayor, at least through the chair, to talk about this, because if this was really serious, and I'm not saying it's not, but the optics, if this is really serious and the school board really needed the support of the city, when you brought this agenda item up, I really was hoping that the school board president would have reached out to the mayor of the city and really talked about it. It's not a Brown Act violation. It's two separate government bodies. Two, the school board, in my humble opinion, is always looking after for themselves and not willing to collaborate with the city. We had a really fantastic joint meeting, and we never got a thank you for our city staff supporting them with COVID shots and offering it to the community. And then when you had a major undertaking of renaming a school, you have the mayor that's Hispanic, his father was a bracero, his mother was a day labor type housekeeper. You have a Hispanic vice mayor. They implement a policy that does not go into effect till the 7th. We talk about inclusivity, and the mayor that's Mexican American is not allowed in his city to attend the renaming. And here I have a top-notch council member that's fighting hard to bring a working relationship to benefit our kids, but the directors of the school board, even after I asked the city manager to reach out to the superintendent and follow the chain of command that the council members were 100% vaccinated, they stood fast and says no. I'm very disappointed. Two, we are one of the top 10 cities that are the most expensive cities to live, work, play, and most important, do business. I cannot support putting another, in this case, a parcel tax. And my optics, my vision that I have seen from when you were campaigning, and I observed you when you were campaigning against Disney, and then you were working to tax Amazon, respectfully, council member, on agenda item, you're the author of Tax Amazon. And what really kind of concerns me respectfully, council member Anthony, is that Amazon in our city is only here for 5 years if they wish. They don't have a permanent footprint. But in Glendale, who's not going to tax them, they have a huge building. Every time I ride the train, I see this huge Amazon building. And then what's really scary, trying to preserve jobs with benefits. Disney moved 2,000 jobs. And you're right, they don't have to go to Florida. But when Disney is in full production, they have about 7,800 employees. That's roughly 2,800 Burbank residents that have a good paying salary job with benefits. I understand how difficult it is. We give the school district, I believe, over $3 million annually from our budget to their budget for our joint use agreements. We were here together and we united and said, yes, use our public pool. So for the chairman, or in this case, the school board chair, not to reach out to the mayor to talk about this in great detail, knowing that this is an agenda item, I cannot see giving direction to our city attorney from city tax dollars to hire an outside consultant to work on this if it moves to a second step. The voters twice have said no parcel tax. We're already 3 million in the red this year. I believe it was 3.2 that were already in the red. So I'm troubled that nobody from the school board, and hopefully the chair, could pick up the phone, but they sure got me real good, but not inviting me or another fellow Mexican-American mayor that's 100% vaccinated. So how can I expect that we're really going to have a good, close working relationship when I'm getting hammered, when we have to work through our own COVID testing policy, which I can't discuss till the next agenda item. But I cannot move this forward. I cannot vote for this. So I will call for the motion, and we'll see
if
where
I could, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I can't speak to the actions of the school board. Hopefully they'll reach out to you and explain their actions. But I will tell you, Disney has one of the lowest property taxes in the entire city due to Prop 13. And, if Burbank passed some kind of large parcel tax, there's no reason why Glendale wouldn't look next door and say, hey, maybe we could do the same. So, I'm trying to do something with the economics of the city. We have a lot of really big, wealthy corporations who, for one reason or another, whether it's through Prop 13 taxes or whether it's companies like Amazon that are able to skirt the loopholes on different taxes because of where they're incorporated and how they move their money around from state to state. There are big corporations that don't pay what you and I, regular citizens, pay, or what regular small businesses pay percentage-wise in taxes. And so, I don't believe that what we're asking for, this small amount of money, is going to make a big difference to them. It's a drop in the bucket to these big boys. But I appreciate your thoughts. I did not know that about the invite to the Dolores Huerta renaming. I'm sorry about that.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Springer.
I just want to, the Avion property where Amazon is a tenant would have been recently reassessed because those are new improvements. So the tax Amazon, again, is misleading because that property is newly improved and would be assessed.
Sure, but with triple net lease, that tax would go straight to the tenant.
That's exactly right. All those little tenants, there's creative industrial space there's retail space. So they will all bear the burden of that.
But the 700,000 square foot Amazon facility would also, that's a big chunk of that.
Right, and so they will be paying market rate, recently assessed taxes on their space there.
It costs us roughly $198 million operating, if I remember right. Mr. City Manager, what's our operating budget for a fiscal year?
General fund's like $175 million.
Okay, so $175 million is costing the city to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days. If we don't think about or have this is an important conversation about the business and the tax base. And I understand when the callers were saying, hey, there's an imbalance between jobs and housing. I didn't create the situation that we're in. I'm trying to manage it, and I'm trying to work real hard to bring more affordable housing. But the real estate market here in Burbank, it's out of this world. The average home now, God forbid a commercial building that's going to be taxed, but the average home is right around $800 at the low end, but the average price when I talk to some of the realtors is like $1 million now. That's a huge tax on top of adding another tax. Imagine the commercial buildings. And again,
Mr. Mayor, I got to be honest with you. In 2018, you and I had a discussion about Measure P before it came to the vote. And I told you directly, I said sales taxes hurt small businesses the most. They're the ones who can't absorb that. And I asked, please put in some language that we can exempt small businesses or get them some sort of tax rebate on this. And that wasn't added to Measure P.
Because Measure P was not a property tax.
I understand that. But historically, we know sales taxes affect small businesses the most. And so what I'm trying to do here is create some sort of equality in our businesses where we don't tax small businesses and that we create some sort of revenue from the biggest corporations. And now look, I know there's not the votes already in the room, so I think we're just beating a dead horse.
You got, let me finish with Vice Mayor, and then we'll call for the vote, and you're absolutely correct. Let's see where we land. Vice
All right,
Mayor, you have
thank
the
Mr.
closing
Mayor.
comments.
Yeah, we've been discussing, we're going in circles. One of the concerns that some members of the community had back in QS and Measure I's for the school district was the fact that there's so many, I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a lot of students that their parents don't live in Burbank, right? I mean, obviously we do have several, I don't know what the percentage is or how high it is, but they're driven in, they might work in Burbank, but they don't live in Burbank. That was one of the concerns back in November 2018 and March 2020. So that could have been your 2% right there of those concerned residents. The other thing too is that I've tried to work in the spirit of cooperation with the school district. There doesn't seem to be, I've extended my hand several times in the spirit of cooperation, but it hasn't been received. So over there, it seems like it's them against us. We're not working together because of the fact that right here is a perfect example. The middle school that was dedicated. You don't invite the city council? What? I mean, really, now that the residents are hearing what happened, you don't invite the city council? And then we're talking about, this is our school district, these are our kids, but for this presentation or this event, we don't want them here. Is that the spirit of cooperation that we're going to be working under? And several years ago, our last joint meeting, it was pointed out that we have contributed in various sorts of ways $3 million to the school district. So it's not that we've shut them out completely. No, we've given them $3 million worth of products or services or whatever it might be. $3 million is a lot of money. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I call for the question.
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Sharon Springer, go ahead.
Yes, the business just collects the sales tax. That's not, all they do is a sales tax collector. The customer pays the sales tax. And we support our schools and we support our students. And I think we've been very clear about that, and especially with the last tax and that how we unanimously supported it. And I think maybe you might have had a better response if you were open and transparent about what you were doing.
I'm sorry, open and transparent about what?
Okay, you know what? Let's call for the vote and let's move this on.
Just one more
And we already have a question on the floor. No, I'm sorry.
You don't have a motion on the floor.
Oh,
You
let's
don't
call,
have
let's call for the motion. I think we've said enough on this agenda item. Let's move this forward. If I can get a motion.
I move that we note and file, Mr. Mayor. I move that we note and file this report.
I'd like to be more specific.
Okay.
I like to direct staff not to pursue placing a parcel tax on the upcoming ballot and note and file this.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam City Clerk, can you please call for the vote?
Mayor Frutos,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Talamantes,
Yes.
Councilmember Anthony,
No.
Councilmember Springer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, if we can get a hold of Councilmember Schultz to turn back his camera on and join us. And then we'll move on to the next item.
Mr. Mayor, I'm back.
Oh, welcome back, sir. This is a time for brief council comments, including reporting out on council assignments. Who would like to go first? Councilmember Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on Wednesday, September 15th, I attended the first meeting of the new Burbank Police Commission, and I just wanted to report back that they've elected a new chair, Mike Chapman, a new vice chair, James Coombs, and a new secretary, Africa Turner. They also had a phenomenal presentation and overview of the OIR process. Saturday, September 18th, I joined Councilmember Springer for a ribbon cutting at Move Her Fitness at 2006 West Burbank Boulevard. A great place to get in shape and get fit. Hope you check them out. Monday, September 20th, I attended the Sustainable Burbank Commission. They had a pretty interesting presentation by the Surfrider Foundation on a plastics ban. If you get the chance, you can watch the meeting back. Very interesting stuff. Tuesday, September 21st, I interviewed a candidate for the BHC Board of Directors and the Community Development Goals Committee. I also attended the Mayor's Board and Commissions Appreciation Dinner, which I think was a resounding success. Heard lots of really positive feedback about that, Mr. Mayor. Wednesday through Friday, I was with the mayor and Councilmember Springer in Sacramento attending the Cal Cities 2021 annual conference. I'll just say for the public, it was a great opportunity to learn and meet with our colleagues around the state about issues like economic recovery and development, housing, homelessness, lots of great ideas and resources that we brought back. Almost done, Mr. Mayor. While up there, you and I had a chance to meet with our advocates in Sacramento. Looking forward to the conversation next week. Saturday, the 25th, I had a chance to attend the Kiwanis Club of Burbank 100-year installation ceremony. Congratulations to all of the new officers. I believe I was joined by the mayor, vice mayor, and Councilmember Springer. Yesterday, had a chance to attend the open house event for our new homeless storage facility, and I believe a video tour, if you will, is on all of the city's social media accounts, so be sure to check that out. Also went to the ribbon cutting for Bird Box with you, Mr. Mayor, at 1212 North San Fernando, Suite A. They had some amazing boneless wings. Highly recommend you try it. And then lastly, had a great opportunity. Thank you again to the Vice Mayor for joining me today at Family Service Agency of Burbank. Had a chance to tour their facility, overview of all the services they offer, and a glimpse at, stuff potentially in the future. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Which other councilman would like to report out next? Councilmember Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to talk about the Boards and Commissions Appreciation Dinner. So that was a week ago, and it was so great to see all of the folks who, donate their time. I mean, they're all volunteer positions. These are people who come together. They have their meetings. They look at policy and proposals and everything that's moving through the city. And I just want to say that we appreciate all the input that they give to us. There's only 5 of us. We can only have so much expertise and experience in so many fields. And having all of these volunteers put their time and effort into getting their heads together and giving us the best recommendations, the best policies, the greatest use of our city time and energy. I just wanted to say, thank you to all of those folks, and thank you to everyone who came to that dinner, and all of the boards and commissions members who weren't able to attend. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things. I had a LOSAM board briefing call. I also attended a meeting of the LA County Homeless Blue Ribbon Committee. And I was there with the mayor for the Boards and Commissions Appreciation Dinner. I had to leave early. Unfortunately, that's my mom's birthday, 21st, and she recently passed away. So we got the family together and we celebrated her birthday. So I did stop by and told the mayor what was happening, that I wasn't able to stay for the entire evening. But I want to thank all the boards and commissions members that give a lot of their time in service to our community. Thank you very much. I participated in the Senior Citizen Board meeting. I also attended, like my other colleagues, the Kiwanis Club of Burbank 100th year installation ceremony. Congratulations to the outgoing board members, and congratulations to the incoming board members. And wish you much success this coming year. Coming from the Centennial Mayor to the new board. So congratulations. I also attended, like it was mentioned, the open house event and homeless storage facility. That's going to be, it's a large elephant and we're taking a bite at a time. This is a small bite, and nonetheless, it's going to be very worthwhile and help a lot of homeless people giving them direction, a place to store their stuff, whatever they might have. It'll be safe. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all.
Councilmember Springer.
Yes, thank you. I did many of the same things, but I also attended the open house for the storage facility with Vice Mayor, the Mayor, and Council Member Schultz. And went to the ribbon cutting for Life Rooted Pizza and Move Her Fitness. And the conference, the League of Cal Cities was very good. I have some great takeaways that I will put to use moving forward on water, climate change, housing, and we're in a heap of trouble with water. And one very good session was with Richard Montañez, and there will be a Netflix movie about his life. I attended Relay for Life to honor people we've lost through cancer and to celebrate those people who've survived and to also celebrate the caregivers. And I attended a meeting on Sunday morning for our community garden, for the one at Chandler and Pass. And that's moving forward, and there's a lot of excitement about that. And I too was at the ribbon cutting for Bird Box. And that pretty much wraps it up.
All right, thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Councilman Springer. Okay, thank you. Going back to Wednesday the 15th, I also attended the monthly police commission meeting. Councilmember Schultz covered that. I did attend the boards and commissions appreciation dinner. I'd like to thank Ms. Lynette Romero, the anchor from the morning Channel 5 News, for helping us out and being the MC. And most important, thank you to all the various commissions and board community members that came to participate in the annual dinner. And most important, thanks staff for making it a howdy hoedown country western atmosphere evening. It was a lot of fun. I attended from Wednesday the 22nd through Friday the 24th. I attended the League of California Cities, and as required by the Federal Political Action Committee, I have to report out that I attended. And some of the classes that I attended the LA County, LA Division luncheon meeting, and then I also attended the required assembly, I forgot the number, but it's the ethics training that each council member has to do every 2 years. And then on the 23rd, I, along with Councilmember Schultz, we met with our lobbyists and we talked about various issues, environment, transportation, housing, et cetera, et cetera. I also attended that Friday a required assembly bill that was passed, made into law. Each council member every 2 years and supervisor has to take a sexual harassment course. So I took it while I was up there in Sacramento. And then I joined Councilmember Springer. We met with several cities at a breakout session to discuss Senate Bill 9 and 10, which was Stop the Sacramento Land Grab. So other cities across the state are very frustrated, but I can't go into discussion because that becomes an agenda item that wasn't on the calendar. I also attended the Kiwanis Club. They are celebrating their 100-year installation anniversary. I would like to give a shout out to our Chief of Police for bringing some of the men and women of the Burbank Police Department to be part of that ceremony. 100 years of Kiwanis, outstanding. I did the ribbon cutting for the open house event at our homeless storage facility, and I also did a ribbon cutting for a new business that's going to sell hot wings. I also like to publicly thank my colleagues, all council members, Councilmember Anthony, Schultz, Springer, and our Vice Mayor. Working for the railroad, I never know where they're going to send me, but thanks for stepping up and doing my mayor duties. Hopefully you're enjoying them. But I just wanted to really say thank you for stepping up and, continue moving our council forward. Thank you. And a special thank you to Christine. If I'm right, this is Christine's last meeting. Oh, one more meeting? Disregard Christine. I got one more meeting to work on my speech. Okay, with that being said, I now would like to introduce the agenda items that the council members would like to bring up. Any items? Councilmember Schultz.
Yeah, just quickly, Mr. Mayor, if I understand correctly, next meeting, we're having our state legislative update. If we could have a special portion of the meeting focused on Senate Bill 9 and 10 and its applicability to Burbank, I think we'd all appreciate that.
Mr. City Manager?
We could certainly have our state lobbyists talk about that as part of the presentation, for sure.
Okay, great. Outstanding. Thank you. Councilmember Springer?
Would that, excuse me, Councilmember Schultz, would that include SB 8? I think that extends SB 330, right?
I believe you're
Let's
right.
stop right there. Why don't you just add SB 8 as a presentation with our lobbyist?
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
I would like an agenda item. What can we do to tighten up our general plan so that we maintain local control?
Mr. City Manager?
I'm thinking about SB 35.
In light of SB 35 or in light of SB 9, in light of the recent housing legislation.
Yeah, and can I just add something? As far as SB 9 and 10, what that means for our community, what our community can expect. Thank you.
Okay, any other council members wish to add something? Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to have a report come back in regards to looking at the possibility of community service officers being utilized in our community. The reason I'm asking, there's several communities nearby that have been using community service officers for many years. But I'd like to get the report back in regards to what other communities, what they're doing and how they're using it, and potentially pros and cons.
Got that?
Yeah, we could have PD bring back a first step and
Okay.
go from there.
One step, two-step process, yes. Anything else, Vice Mayor? Okay, I have two, Mr. City Manager. This is a follow-up of our agenda item, which I didn't want to, because I think I was going off on a different agenda, but I like to see on a report that would hopefully lead us to a one-step if there's enough interest. I'd like to see a discussion, a policy in the future regarding solar panels, and this came out of my conversation with our lobbyists that there's money from the state regarding electric charging stations. I'd like to see them in neighborhoods, specifically on public easements around schools, where we can have residents in that neighborhood charge their cars. I'd like to see that along with solar panels.
Mr. Mayor, if we could bring back a report regarding kind of our plan with solar and EV charging just as a whole, and maybe we could satisfy your request.
Okay, perfect. And then my final agenda item is, well, I was up in Sacramento, I was walking the floors of our state capitol, and in talking to a staffer, apparently Senator Portantino asked for a Sacramento legislative analyzed report of 35. And it's a little bit different between the opinion that we're getting from the city attorney and Sacramento. I'd like to put that together and see where we're at, because I'm still trying to follow up what we can do with that. I'd like to see the state's legislative analysis of 35.
We will try to get you that analysis and
then kind of dummy it down so I can understand it better. But it feels like there's two separate opinions that I'm getting. Okay, thank you. That's a discussion.
We'll try to get you that analysis.
Perfect.
And I'll consult with the city attorney.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else, council members? Seeing none, we will now adjourn to Tuesday, October the 5th, 2021 for a regular meeting. The public may view the meeting online or on television and will be able to provide public comment in the following three ways: by leaving an e-comment on the city's webpage, burbankca.gov/e-comments, by emailing the city council directly at citycouncil@burbankca.gov, or by calling in directly to the council meeting at 818-238-3335. Good night, Burbank community. Good night, council members. Thank you. Thank you, staff.